Actually, before you start, Mr. Mayor, I don't see Member Brindle nor Member Stoughton. Ryan, did you hear from Member Brindle that she was having technical difficulty in the work session meeting?
Yeah, she was going to switch to a different device.
It's a good catch, Clerk Ellison. Yeah. Well, wait, I just looked at the array of boxes here and thought they were there. So, there's Member Staunton's here.
Member Staunton's here, yeah.
Okay.
So you have a quorum.
Yep, you do.
Is anybody having a text or a phone conversation with Member Brindle to see how far out she is?
No, she is getting IT help, so as soon as she can be on, she'll be on. But we do have a quorum.
Okay. All right, folks. Let's start. And Member Brindle will join us as she can. It's illustrative of the challenges we face. Here she comes. All right, Scott, you're still ready to go?
Yes, Mayor. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual meeting of the Edina City Council. It is Wednesday, October 7th, 2020, and it is 7:02 p.m. Before we call the meeting to order, there are some matters that we have to deal with in this virtual world we've been operating in pursuant to gubernatorial order. As you all know, the meeting is being held electronically to comply with the governor's Stay Safe MN order and to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. So all members of the City Council, the staff and presenters are participating from their homes or offices. And as I mentioned earlier, before we start, there's a few things we need to cover to make things run as smoothly as possible from a technological standpoint. So the city is committed to continuing to receive and hear your input on matters. We've been collecting public input through our council correspondence web form, through voicemail, and our engagement website, bettertogetheredina.org. It's important that you know, if you're listening in, that all comments that have been submitted have been received and read prior to the start of the meeting. So tonight there's going to be two times when you can provide comment by phone. One's, of course, in community comment. In that portion of the agenda, you're allowed to speak about anything that's not on the agenda this evening or scheduled for a future public hearing. We'll be getting to community comment in just a few moments. And then the second opportunity for you to call in is during one of several public hearings we have tonight. And this is that time of the year, I should say, where we have about 10 public hearing matters to deal with. So if you want to call in for community comment or provide testimony for the public hearing, you should think about getting in the queue. Call 800-374-0221. 800-374-0221. The conference ID number is 309-0633, 309-0633. And remember, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Our city manager, Scott Neal, will be doing the timing, and he'll let you know if you go over your time limit, and then you need to wrap up your comments as quickly as possible. And so to make sure that all residents have an opportunity to participate in this world that we're operating in due to the pandemic, we have made a determination at our council not to act on public hearing matters the night we hear the testimony. And so for the matters that we hear tonight, they won't be acted on until our next meeting. And the public hearing motions that you'll hear tonight will require that all public hearing matters remain open until noon on Wednesday, October 14th for further input. So until noon on Wednesday, October 14th, you can leave a voicemail at City Hall. 952-927-8861 is the switchboard number. You can leave your feedback there, or at 952-826-0377 was the preferred number, 952-826-0377, or you can send a comment online to bettertogetheredina.org. So thanks in advance for your patience and your cooperation as we conduct this meeting online using a variety of different software types and having almost 20 people trying to make sure this comes off successfully. We hope there won't be any issues, but that happens from time to time. We just had one getting Member Brindle queued up to get into the meeting as quickly as possible. And of course, if there is any technology challenge, we'll deal with it as quickly as we can. So now we will call the meeting to order, and the first matter before us would be the roll call. And Clerk Allison, would you please call roll for us?
Member Anderson?
Here.
Member Brindle?
Here.
Member Fisher?
Here.
Member Staunton?
Here.
Mayor Hovland?
Here. Next matter on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll do that now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got a form of meeting agenda in front of us this evening. Is there anyone on the council or Manager Neal that wishes to modify the meeting agenda in any form? Hearing nothing, is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as shown?
So moved.
Second. Got a motion by Member Brindle, second by Member Fisher to approve the form of meeting agenda as published. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Clerk Allison, with respect to approving the meeting agenda.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The form of meeting agenda as published is adopted. Next, we'll move on to community comment. And we will now hear from residents who wish to speak to the council about something which is not on tonight's agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing. Again, if you want to call in now to address us as a council or inquire about a matter, call 800-374-0221, conference ID 309-0633, 309-0633. An operator will ask for your name and street address and put you in the queue to speak. As I mentioned earlier, you'll get 3 minutes, and Manager Neal will be our timekeeper, and he'll let you know when you're out of time, and then you need to wrap up your comments. Director Benarott, do we have anybody in the queue for community comment?
Good evening, Mayor Hovland and members of the council. Tonight, our first caller for community comment is Lori Groats. Operator, will you please unmute the line of Lori Groats? And then Lori, once your line has been unmuted, please begin by stating your full name and address.
Go ahead, Ms. Groats.
Okay, I didn't know if I was unmuted or not. Lori Groats, 5513 Park Place. In order to comply with the Governor's Stay Safe Minnesota order, the meetings of the City Council, the volunteer commissions, the HRA, and the task forces have been taking place virtually in order to protect the health of Edina residents, staff, and any presenters. PowerPoints and other presentations have successfully taken place during these meetings. They are being live streamed and are available for viewing at a later time. Unless it has changed within the last week, Director Milner has planned for an in-person 3-hour dinner meeting of the Street Financing Task Force in the Public Works Lunchroom on October 12th. David Kendall, a consulting attorney, is also planned to be there. The meeting will not be live streamed, nor will it be video recorded. It will only be audio recorded. The task force will be coming up with their final recommendations for street financing, which they will later present to the City Council during a virtual work session. This in-person meeting of the Street Task Force appears to be in violation of the city's policy regarding the Governor's Stay Safe Minnesota. A majority of the volunteer members of the task force are of an age which puts them in the high-risk category for complications from COVID-19. Not only would Mr. Milner be putting the task force members, staff, and the presenter at risk, but there could also be a risk for spreading COVID-19 in the community. How do you eat with a mask on? What kind of ventilation system is in the Public Works lunchroom? This meeting appears to be the only public city meeting that is not taking place virtually. I think besides being a health risk, it is also an ethics issue. The Street Financing Task Force meetings are open to the public. Why aren't there meetings listed on Nova's agenda like all the other open city meetings, including the Housing Task Force? Why aren't the meetings live streamed? All of the other meetings are live streamed, including the Housing Task Force. The street task force has been meeting every 2 weeks all summer, yet only the September 1st and the September 29th meetings were recorded. Why? Please make the decision tonight to change the October 12th Street Task Force meeting from an in-person to a virtual meeting. Please post their meetings on Novus Agenda. Please live stream the meetings. Every Edina resident will be fiscally impacted by the future street financing policy. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Groats. Director Benrod, is there anyone else in the queue?
Any other callers on the line at this time? I would recommend we wait just a minute or so as there is a slight delay in the broadcast. I'll be watching my clock, and when it is 7:12, I'll give you the go-ahead to move on unless I have another caller.
Thank you.
No other callers, and it's 7:12, so I think it's safe for you to move on with your agenda.
All right, thank you, Director Benrod. As is our custom and practice, City Manager Neal will respond to community comments that were made at our last City Council meeting. And Ms. Groats was one of the speakers at our last City Council meeting and raised a concern about the access to the street task force work as a resident and wondered why they were not being live streamed, as she talked about tonight, or being made more accessible for public listening or viewing. And I think that's the question she raised tonight is a variation of the one she raised a couple weeks ago. And Manager Neal, you've written a memo, done some research and written a memo on this, and I expect this is one of the things you're going to address with us this evening, as well as maybe some other community comments that were made at our last meeting. Manager Neal.
Thank you, Your Honor. We had three community comments at the September 15th meeting. And as you noted, one of them was from Ms. Groats, and it was on the subject of this street funding task force. I'll just address that as clearly as I can today. A couple of years ago, the city initiated a new level of formality and process for how we appoint and manage our ad hoc task forces. The new process includes the establishment of a written task force charge, and this task force charge lays out what the goal of the task force is, its timeline, its budget, its staff support, et cetera. From a staff standpoint, we found this additional structure around task forces to add to the effectiveness of the task force. It reduces confusion. It helps the task force actually stay on task, which is what we want them to do. One of the process changes that we created, or that we added at that time, was we created two different kinds of task forces. One is a city council task force, the other is a city manager task force. And those task forces are fundamentally different in terms of who appoints the task force members, who are the task force members accountable to, what are the parameters of their protocol, and so forth. Usually staff will get some initial feedback from council and then develop a task force charge and then recruit members. When we discussed the formation of the street funding task force at the city council level, staff and council discussed what type of task force it should be. And I recommended to you at that time that it be a city manager task force. And after some discussion at the March 17th, 2020 council meeting, the council agreed. But the language of the written charge for the task force, which was approved that night by the council, was not clearly for a council task force or a manager task force. It was sort of a hybrid of both. And that's really where the confusion started about how this task force was established and how it was managed going forward. The task force is not subject to an open meetings law, but it is subject to government data practices requirements. We can operate a task force as if it is subject to the open meetings law, and really as the charge included that language that the council approved. That's what we should have done, but we didn't do that. When the question was raised about the incompatibility of the task force charge with the actual operations of the task force, staff took a look at that and found them not to be aligned. While the city didn't violate state law, open meetings law in this matter, we didn't do what we said we were going to do, and that was wrong. That's not what we do here. I take responsibility for that. I should have paid closer attention to the actual content of the task force charge when we brought it to you in March of 2020. All I can say is that in March of 2020, we were facing a high volume of highly complex questions around the pandemic that none of us had ever faced before. And we had a lot of balls in the air, and I took my eye off this ball. So I apologize for that. We're going to be more diligent about ensuring and how we manage our task forces and how the council is involved in them from here on out, for sure. Because of the virus, we don't currently allow the public to attend physically to council or commission meetings. Instead, we record the meetings for viewing, and the public can watch them live or at a later time. In this case, as Ms. Gross noted, meetings 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 6 of the task force were not recorded because we were managing them as if they were a city manager task force. Meetings 5 and 7 were recorded and are now parts of the city's website. So, and starting with the September 29th meeting, staff will record all meetings of the task force. Recordings will be either video or audio, depending on the format. Video recordings will be posted to the city's website and will be live streamed whenever practical. Audio recordings will be made available when the video is not practical, and we'll do that under the same terms that we always do for other task forces. I offer my apologies on the process error and how we've managed this to date. The task force discussion work that's been completed to date is not spoiled by any means. The group has dedicated many hours of time and energy to this very difficult task. The task force will share its update with you on the status of their work at the November 17th council work session.
With respect to the issues that Ms. Gross raised tonight, are you prepared to comment on those, or the notion that there is in fact a proposed physical gathering of people at the public work site that are part of it?
I'm not actually. I think I would like to have a little bit of time with Mr. Milner to talk about that in more detail.
All right. You might also discuss that live streaming issue that she raised in conjunction with that meeting, if it is held live and at the Public Works Building. Thank you. Okay, you had a couple other matters as well.
The next item was a question about crime, and it was posed in a broad sense about is the community safe for me to raise a family? And I think I can pretty confidently tell you that it is a safe community by almost all measures, how you want to measure a safe community in terms of public safety. But we know the world is changing and that people see changes around them, whether they're in this community, they're in other nearby communities, and it's making people nervous. And we hear a lot about that, and we see it as well. So I thought tonight, in response to that question, that I'd give the council a general view of what our police department's experiencing so far in 2020 compared to 2019. I think this will give you a general sense of direction of the level of community order and disorder in Edina. So the data I'm going to share is January to September 2019 compared to January to September in 2020. Total calls for service in 2020 are down 21% from 2019. Total police reports generated by these calls for service, so not every call for service ends up creating a police report. Total police reports for those calls of service are also down, but they're down 17% from 2019 to 2020. Robbery reports are down by 42% from 2019 to 2020, but this is a stat where you need to take into consideration the small sample size because the decrease was from 14 to 8, and that's a 42% decrease. Burglary reports are up 14%, but that's, again, a small sample size from 109 to 125. Small sample sizes, especially in crime, can be used to make us think something that's true is not true in terms of a larger trend. Domestic disturbances, domestic disturbance calls are down 16% from 62 to 52. Mental health calls are up 7% from 135 last year to 145 this year. The increase in mental health calls is noticeable because those calls have a long time on call factor. Officers are there tend to be at those calls for a long time, which diminishes their availability for other calls. Thefts of vehicles are down 15% in 2020, but they have increased every month this year for the past 5 months. So there is a little bit of a trend, at least in 2020, of those numbers going up, even though they're down from last year. Thefts from vehicles, so there's thefts of vehicles, there's thefts from vehicles, are also down in 2020 by 12%. But like thefts of vehicles, they too have increased every month for the past 5 consecutive months. And this is a classic crime of opportunity. Owners of vehicles can take several relatively easy actions to greatly decrease their vulnerability to these crimes. And 3 easy suggestions are: don't leave your keys in your car, lock your car, and lock your garage doors. And if you do those 3 things, you will dissuade a lot of thefts of vehicles and from vehicles. A disturbing trend, though, in 2020 is the greater frequency of drivers fleeing from police. Instead of pulling over when they are supposed to pull over to the side of the road, they instead flee. Edina police have seen a 59% increase in the number of vehicles refusing to stop when they are authorized to stop. Law enforcement agencies are seeing across the country are seeing similar increases in fleeing from police, sometimes with tragic consequences, and we saw that just last week in Minneapolis. While the number of fleeing from police reports has increased substantially in 2020, we've also seen 3 consecutive months of decrease in this crime, so at least the trend for 2020 seems to be going in the right direction. An interesting trend in 2020 crime reports is the significant decrease in illegal drug reports, which are down 60% in 2019. I'm not sure that there are less drugs being done or in the community, but what happens is there's a positive correlation between the level of traffic citations and traffic stops and drug reports. And we had a very significant decrease in traffic citations for most of 2020 due to some changes that we needed to make in the police department related to the pandemic. And that change in staffing about how we handle traffic really was positively correlated with illegal drug reports going down substantially as well. So that's a quick view into what our police are seeing in the community. The resident who raised these questions at your last council meeting cited 2 examples of violent crime: a shooting that occurred at the hospital and a hit and run of a student on France Avenue who was waiting to board a bus. I mean, these crimes, because they happen so infrequently in Edina, really catch your ear, catch your eye, and make you concerned about the future. We just don't have those kinds of violent crimes happen in this community very often. And in this case, in both cases, Edina police really were integral to apprehending the alleged perpetrators on really fairly short order. So we are fortunate to have a relatively low crime rate. We're fortunate to have a really excellent police department to help make that happen as well. So that's just a response to that question. The final question was regarding how the police, or if the police, are continuing the initiative to add some sort of race component to their records. I want you to know that is part of the Race and Equity Work Plan. We are working through that process to figure out how to do it. I wish there were a standard national way to collect that data. There is not. There's not even a state standard for that data, but we are continuing to work on it. We have had some discussion with our colleagues in St. Louis Park to try to figure out a way to do it together. But we are working on it, and we'll continue to work on it in 2020 and 2021 if necessary. And that's all I have, sir.
All right, good. And I want to, while you're on this crime report, just pass on a compliment. I was on a call this morning with some of our commercial property owners and also the Fairview Southdale Hospital folks. And Lieutenant Brian Tholen was on the call from the PD. And the Southdale Hospital personnel were so laudatory of our police department and the work that they did in conjunction with the shooting that occurred at the ramp and the improvements and suggestions that have been made from a security standpoint for the hospital itself. They just couldn't be more complimentary in the efforts and the work of our police department in assisting them. And of course, we know that 2 people have been arrested and jailed in conjunction with that shooting, and so our police department was doing some very effective work there as well.
I'll pass it along.
And we know they're doing their best, and they're good at what they do. So, anything else, Manager Neal?
That's all I have for you on that tonight. Thank you.
All right. Anything from council members with regard to any of the reporting out that Manager Neal was doing? Okay, we'll move on then to the consent agenda. There's several items on the consent agenda. I've received information from City Manager Neal that we should pull items 6G, H, and L, if you would mark those accordingly. And other than 6G, H, and L, is there any matter that any of the council members would like to remove from the consent agenda for individual discussion? All right, is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda with the exception of items 6G, H, and L, which we'll handle individually?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Staunton, a mouth motion by Member Brindle, decided to stay on mute, counted on me to read her lips, which I was able to do. Member Fisher backing her up just in case. Any further discussion? With respect to the motion to adopt a consent agenda with the exception of items G, H, and L, roll call, please. Clerk Allison.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The first matter that was pulled from the consent agenda deals with the local housing incentives account program under the Metropolitan Livable Communities Act. It's something that we've done for several years with the Metropolitan Council. I think it comes about simultaneously with the comprehensive plan about every 10 years. Several of us wanted to visit about that issue. And so, Manager Neal, I think you've gathered together some information with respect to the goals that the Metropolitan Council is proposing that we try to achieve. It's not a mandate, but it's a goal matter. And maybe you want to direct us over to Stephanie Hawkinson, our Affordable Housing Director, but you may have some introductory comments.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. You were right. This is something that all cities do. Not all cities do it, but all cities have the opportunity to do it. Every 10 years, generally, if you do one thing every 10 years, you're all not that good at it. It's something we just don't have a lot of experience doing. So we do have Stephanie Hawkinson, our Affordable Housing Development Manager, with us tonight. I have given her a little bit of advance notice that you had some questions about this. So she's come prepared tonight to tell you about it and to tell you what the goals mean for us in terms of affordable housing, but maybe more importantly, what the upside is to casting a yes vote for this item. So that's what I have for Ms. Hawkinson.
All right, thank you, Manager Neal. And Ms. Hawkinson, good to see you. Welcome. And if you want to do some backgrounding before we have individual council questions, that might be helpful.
Mayor, council members, my pleasure. May I share my screen?
Of course.
So as the city manager indicated, this is something that occurs every 10 years if cities want to re-enroll in the Metropolitan Council's LCA program. By re-enrolling, it makes the city eligible to apply for funds through Met Council, which are the LCDA, there's a lot of acronyms, LCDA, LHIA, and TBRA funds. It also makes the city eligible for deed and Hennepin County brownfield cleanup funding. If we do not re-enroll in this program, we cannot, or we could apply, but we are not eligible to receive funding from these sources. So it is based on approving the goal number. In the comprehensive plan, and this gets really confusing, but in the comprehensive plan, there was the need number of 1,804 new affordable housing units. And this was approved at your August City Council meeting when you approved the comprehensive plan. What's different from this is there's a need number and a goal number. The need number is based on the forecasted growth. They look at the economy, they look at jobs and wages, and they look at land use plans. And so as Met Council kind of describes it, it's like it's this big sausage machine where they put in all these variables and then they determine what each city's need number is for affordable housing for the next 10 years. The goal number is a range, and that is based on the need number multiplied by the amount of funding that's available through HUD, Minnesota Housing, Hennepin County, Metropolitan Council. You know, how much money is actually available to achieve affordable housing goals or affordable housing need number. And so with the formula they used, and they had multiple community meetings to determine this, was based on funding. We think, or the Metropolitan Council believed that they could actually achieve 45% of the need number. But then they also want to take into account that communities are being creative. There's these inclusionary housing policies, and there's other methods by which people are bringing affordable housing into their community. So they added another 10%. So the goal for the next 10 years is 55% of the need number up to the need number. So it's 994, approximately, I can look at the exact number, up to the 1804 is the goal. Then the life cycle goal number is based on, again, the comprehensive plan that was approved in August, and it's based on land guided for multifamily housing. So those were those two numbers come from. And again, they're goal numbers, but there's no negative repercussions for not meeting those goal numbers. In fact, the last go around for the last 10 years, no community actually met their goal number because it is based heavily on funding available. So the benefit for re-enrolling in the LCA program, in 2010 through 2012, we didn't apply for any of these funds. So it didn't impact us much. But between 2013 and 2019, we were awarded $10,800,832 from the sources of funds that we will no longer be eligible to apply for, at least this year, if we do not re-enroll. Or if we don't re-enroll ever, we are not eligible to apply for these funds. And we have benefited. We have benefited from being part of the LCA program. So I have two pie charts before you. One that shows that we receive funds from all these different sources, from LCDA, TBRA, LCDA TOD, LHIA deed, and ERF, which is from Hennepin County. So some of these are environmental remediation funds. And the types of developments that have benefited from these funds are almost equally split between commercial, affordable housing, and mixed-use developments. So this is not just an affordable housing program. This has helped different types of developments in the city. I will stop sharing and see if you have any additional questions.
All right, good. Thank you, Ms. Hawkinson. Questions for Ms. Hawkinson? based on her presentation or based on the information we received or the language of Resolution 2020-94?
Yep, I do.
Member Anderson?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Ms. Hankerson. So what we're talking about tonight, and thanks for your introduction. That's useful because I got a lot of questions here, and you did answer some of them. So thank you for that. So I'm very clear on the new affordable housing units, and we've got a range of 992 to 1804, and I think 992 is the is it? Did you mention 55% goal there? Yeah, great. Okay. So my questions though center around the life cycle units, and I'm not totally familiar with how those are categorized. And so I called the Metropolitan Council, I downloaded their report to the legislature, and I took a look at the comp plan and how that's referenced, and it's a little vague. For instance, their report to the legislature indicates that we're going to provide life cycle housing, entails a range of housing options that meet people's preferences and circumstances at all of life stages, which you could probably get just out of the term. Constructing attached units yields greater housing density and diversity in housing. Communities that support life cycle housing will have housing units, both rental and for purchase, that are affordable for low and median income buyers and for the move-up market. The amount of life cycle housing to be added to a municipality is negotiated in advance for each community participating in the LCA program. One question is, we have roughly 1804 or 992. Are those units included in the life cycle number, that 3,700?
Mayor, council member, from my understanding, no, they are separate numbers. There could be some overlap in that a lot of the affordable units could be in multifamily developments, but they're not necessarily. The life cycle number is pretty much based on density and land, the land use chapter of our comprehensive plan. And they look at how much density there could be. And they call it, the whole nomenclature of life cycle is challenging because it means pretty much like someone just finishing school and moving out on their own may not be ready for a single family home, and someone exiting their single family home after they've raised their family and are empty nesters and they want to move back, downsize. So that is a different number from just affordability, because affordability has income caps in it, and life cycle does not necessarily have the income caps the same level. So it does get a little murky. When we report to the Met Council, I do these annual reports. I talk about the affordable. I have not historically ever had a report on life cycle housing.
Okay. Okay, that's useful because I just couldn't track it down very well, and it sounds like it's a little indistinct. As a matter of fact, when I spoke to the individual at the Metropolitan Council, she had never heard of the term, and I thought that was interesting. So I obviously spoke to the wrong person, to be candid. But okay, so now are there specific, just because this number is large, and I just want to be clear on it, are there specific categories of life cycle housing? I heard you vaguely reference that, but it doesn't sound like there's any great clarity on that as well.
Mayor, council members, again, it's Edina is, and Carrie will pop in if I misquote, 93% zoned single family and 7% zoned that allows for the non-single family development. And so that number is based primarily on the area that is zoned, allows for multifamily development. And so, I mean, and this was one of those discussions that was discussed heavily when looking at the 70th and Cahill plan, where there was concern that if the whole area were developed to the maximum zoning, it could fit certain number of units. Well, that in reality and in practicality, that won't happen. But when they help derive that number, that's what they come up with. But again, these numbers have never been reached. It's just something that they, when they're doing their planning for sewer and roads, they have to keep in mind where this development could occur and where there will be increased need for infrastructure. And so they come up with these numbers to help them with their planning as well.
Okay. So in terms of making the proposal green and applying, and it looks like there's a potential solid return. The grants can be large, and we've received some $10 million. That was one of my questions. So thanks for answering that before we get there. So I guess, my concern is just that we've got a big number there, but I'm hearing you say that it's a goal and we might not get there. In fact, to be candid with you, I don't know how we would get there based on what we've been able to do in the past. And it had my concern because, we're going into CIP discussions, finishing up the budget. I kind of look at this and say, well, are we going to get there? How much will this cost? When I look at 3,700 units, it concerns. So it sounds as if you don't consider life cycle units as affordable housing units as such.
Mayor, council members, no, I do not. And to reiterate, these numbers were already approved when the city council approved the comprehensive plan. The 1804 was part of the housing chapter, and the life cycle housing is based on the land use plan chapter. So to a certain extent, they've already been approved. So what's on the table tonight is wanting to re-enroll in the the LCA program, which reaffirms those numbers.
I see. Okay. Well, that answers most of it. I'm still vaguely troubled by that big number and how we're going to achieve it, or even what it's intended to do. It kind of goes up and it goes down. As you mentioned, we're 93% single family. And so then the introduction there really kind of leads to, like most young people starting out, they find apartments or they find some way of then moving into a single family home ownership, at least here in our community. And then on the backside would be age restricted housing and how that's being developed. And we do have a couple of options that are floating around right now. So I feel a lot more comfortable with that, and the statement that it's a goal and not a clear, absolute, lead-clad commitment to it that we have to, or at least that we have to be too concerned about right now. Is there, I guess the last thing is there a plan on how we might achieve those if we're out to do so?
Mayor, council members, the plan is the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the comprehensive plan does. It lays out some of the goals and strategies and ideas for achieving that. The land use plan shows where there was proposed increased density, increased height, or what the density is, not necessarily increase, but just where it is in the city. And the housing chapter talks about the different types of housing that could occur. So that's the purpose of the comprehensive plan.
Well, of course. Okay, well, very good. Thank you so much.
Did that cause any other council members to have thoughts or comments or questions that they wanted to raise with Ms. Hankerson?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Staunton?
Just a couple of points following up on Member Anderson's comments. One point I would mention is that in terms of plans, that is part of what our Housing Strategy Task Force is looking at, is how are we thinking about the future of housing in our community, what types of housing, what ranges of affordability, et cetera. So I think that's relevant for folks to remember. And then the second piece is, although I'm pleased to see that we've reaped $10 million worth of benefit from being part of the plan over the last 10 years, I also think it's important for us to remember that it's, in a larger sense, this is part of we're part of a larger region, and we need to be thinking about how we can be part of the solutions for the larger region. And that's part of what the Metropolitan Council is looking at, as they're looking at affordable housing, life cycle housing, different types of housing. So I'm pleased that we're part of this, because I think it's a signal that we're part of a larger region. So I'll be supporting this. Thanks.
Thank you. Other council members? All right, those were good questions, Member Anderson. From having been around for the last comprehensive plan and understanding that we didn't meet those goals, I've thought about this over the decade as it's almost like an imposed aspiration by the Met Council. This is where we'd like to see you think about going if these demographic projections hold true, and then we can do our planning. I don't really want to call it a worst case scenario, but if there was significant growth, we need to be able to plan for the infrastructure that's involved here. So none of it that I experienced over the past decade involved any kind of a mandate, but not being part of the program, as you can tell, we received over about an 8-year period, almost $11 million, and it was a source of funding for a mixed use sort of. It was a mix of funds received for a variety of uses, maybe a better way to put it. It wasn't just for affordable housing projects. It was for commercial projects and other projects as well. I think Manager Hankerson had that one pie chart there that was illustrative of how the monies we received were utilized for contamination, cleanup of contaminated properties, use in commercial projects, use in affordable housing projects. So a variety of uses that we've had in our community that we've been able to apply for these funds and secure these funds to be able to assist our community in a broad variety of ways. So I'm not fearful that there's something here that we have to do because of the sort of aspirational nature of it, or the goal that somebody else might have for us. And I know that it's not a mandate from living through this for the past decade. So I'm comfortable supporting it as well, because I think there's a lot more upside than downside in being part of this program. So anybody else have questions? Member Anderson, would you care to move Resolution 2020-94?
So moved. To approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second by Member Brindle on 6G, which is Resolution 2020-94, which is the election to participate in the program. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, with respect to the adoption of the resolution.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. Resolution 2020-94 is adopted. Next matter is item 6H, and we pulled this from the consent agenda because, as in the past, this is a matter that on Hankerson Avenue, from which Member Anderson needed to recuse himself due to a familial relationship with the developers over there. So, Member Anderson, did you want to take this opportunity to recuse yourself again?
Thank you.
All right. And then with Member Anderson recusing himself with respect to Resolution 2020-92, which is the final rezoning, final site plan approval and site improvement plan agreement for the designated addresses on Hankerson Avenue. Is there a motion to adopt that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Staunton, second by Member Fisher, with respect to adoption of Resolution 2020-92. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Anderson? Oh, pardon me. Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. Resolution 2020-92 is adopted, and the final rezoning, final site plan approval and site improvement plan agreement are all embedded in that resolution, then it is approved. And we look forward to that start of that project. I don't know if they're going to start yet this year or not. Director Teague, have you heard anything from the developer on that one?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. As you remember, there was a comprehensive plan amendment tied to this project. So they can't pull a building permit until the Met Council approves the comprehensive plan. They just went through their 60-day review period for adjacent cities. We received no comments, so I will be submitting that comp plan amendment likely the end of this week. So it'll be a little while before they're able to pull permits.
All right, thank you. The next matter we pulled was 6L, which was a request for purchase regarding the City Hall, proposed City Hall security construction improvements. And Manager Neal, did you have a comment there? I don't know who asked to have that pulled.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilmember Anderson asked for this one to be pulled, and I believe his question was regarding ballistics. Is that, was there more to it than that?
Actually, I didn't intend to ask for it to be pulled. It was just a question, so I apologize if I wasn't clear.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, and it was basically, the comment was, as we consider security, and especially at the reception area, ballistics protection is something that could be considered both now and in the future. Because there have been some incidents around town in city halls with shootings, and it seems a good preventive measure for a receptionist or anybody seated at the dais, for that matter, to be able to take advantage of ballistics protection or armament, to be able just to simply get down. That's been brought up by a couple of police officers, and so I took the opportunity to mention it to you. But again, I apologize for not being clear. It wasn't my intention before.
Apologies for that. I do want you to know that we have involved professionals, security professionals in the design process for this project, but we're also going to take a look at the council dais itself to see if there's some ballistics improvements that we can add kind of post construction to that. We've looked at that before, never proceeded with them, but we're going to take another look at it now.
Good, thank you.
All right, Member Anderson, would you please move item 6L, which is the request for purchase so that we can do the City Council security construction improvements we want to make?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Member Anderson, second by Member Staunton, regarding the request for purchase for the City Hall security improvements. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Clerk Ellison.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The resolution or the request for purchase is approved. And I think you're planning on getting those improvements completed by the end of the year, Manager Neal?
You know, if possible, they're going to be disruptive to the workplace, and so we're going to do our best to kind of work around kind of work schedules. But yeah, if we can, we're going to try to do our best to do that.
All right. So this probably goes hand in glove with the issue of whether or not we're going to start meeting live. I know some city councils a little bit further out are returning to meeting in their chambers or some other location. But with these construction activities ongoing, I would assume that we would stay in the virtual world for our meetings until that work is completed.
Right. Yeah. If you've, I know you've all been in the council chambers when the custodians have drug a cart full of garbage across the foyer out there. The acoustics are pretty loud. So imagine the construction activities going on in that same space. It's pretty disruptive. So we do want to try to get this done as soon as we can and eliminate that. But that's the goal as you laid it out.
All right. Yeah. So understanding that we'll get past November 3rd, the election date, and then some activity will start on this project.
Yep.
Yeah. So it seems unlikely to me that we'd finish by the end of the year, even that we wouldn't start until probably mid-November. All right. Very good. Next, we're completing now the consent agenda items, and now we're moving on to special recognitions and presentations. We've got 2 items there. And one is a proclamation for the Girl Scouts, and the Girl Scouts as a force for good. And that proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the Edina Girl Scout Service Unit includes 422 girls, 122 volunteers, and has 51 troops located in all of the Edina schools. And whereas since 1912, Girl Scouting has fueled the leadership pipeline in our communities by preparing and inspiring millions of girls and women to be active leaders with the highest ideals of character, conduct, and patriotism. And whereas throughout its long and distinguished history, Girl Scouts have been the preeminent leadership development organization for girls, where they can unleash their potential to be the leaders of our world, needed both now and in the future. And whereas Girl Scouts' expertise and timeless programming offers every girl a chance to participate in a lifetime of leadership in a girl-led, girl-focused, and all-girl environment. And whereas through Girl Scouting, girls gain courage, confidence, and character to make their local communities and the world a better place. And whereas girls get exposure to new experiences in science, technology, engineering, and math, the outdoors, and entrepreneurship through Girl Scouts' unique programs. And whereas Girl Scouts is a force of good, during the global COVID-19 pandemic, they've stepped up to serve their communities by creating and distributing face masks to keep people safe, donating cookies to support essential workers, and volunteering to feed those in need. And whereas Girl Scouts numbering 28,000 and 12,500 volunteers celebrated 108 years of this American tradition and its contributions to the community the week of September 14th through the 18th, 2020. Now, therefore, I, James B. Hovland, Mayor of Edina, do hereby applaud the commitment of Girl Scouting and the commitment they've made to America's girls. Girl Scouting is a force for good in the city of Edina, and we proudly proclaim Girl Scouts as a force for good in the city of Edina this 7th day of October, 2020. Is there a motion to adopt that proclamation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconds.
Motion by Member Brindle, second by Member Fisher to adopt the Girl Scouts as a force of good proclamation. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, with respect to the adoption of that proclamation.
Member Anderson,
Aye.
Member Brindle,
Aye.
Member Fisher,
Aye.
Member Staunton,
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. The proclamation is adopted. Do we have Annabelle Wolfson, a third grader, and a Brownie with Troop 18424 in Edina present, as well as leaders April Wolfson and Melissa Stiegler? Are they here to accept the proclamation? There they are. Well, welcome. Annabelle, welcome. Thanks for being with us. Can you stand up so we can all see your uniform? Looks like you've already got a bunch of badges and things on your uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you think about this proclamation? Are you pretty excited about it?
Mm-hmm.
That we're all about girls here tonight? You know, for those of us like the mayor that has 2 daughters, no boys, it's a pretty big deal, I think. Pretty proud of girls everywhere. And April, did you have anything that you wanted to comment on?
Annabelle had something to say.
Oh, okay. Annabelle, yes, thank you. We'll look forward to your comments.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Annabelle, and I am a Girl Scout in Troop 1, number 18424. I think Girl Scouts is a force for good because we all work together and are amazing friends. We are each a sister to every Girl Scout. We plant trees and plants. We pick up trash. We are working to save the world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. You got a terrific smile. How are you doing with this hybrid learning?
Good.
School going okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Glad to hear it. All right, well, thanks for being with us this evening, and we'll make sure we get that signed proclamation to you. Annabelle, anything else that you want to comment on tonight? April, anything else?
Nope, we're good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us. That was great that we were able to have people here to accept the proclamation.
Thank you,
All right.
Annabelle.
All right. Now we're going to move on and talk about Chad Ishins. And let me see here. Let me go to that. Recognition. And I think Perry Vitter from our Park and Rec Department is going to handle this matter. And Chad has completed some really significant work here in conjunction with his professional work that he does for the city of Edina. And Perry Vetter, our Park and Rec Director, is going to show a short video and introduce Chad and talk about what he's accomplished. Director Vetter, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking a moment this evening to recognize an ongoing commitment to learning. It's very important for us here. For those of you that don't know, Chad Ishins is the General Manager at Braemar Arena and Braemar Field. He's a valued member of our Park and Recreation leadership team and within the organization. And as you know, he's responsible for one of the major enterprises that the city operates. Not many people can say that their office is at the home of the epicenter of the hockey universe, but Chad gets to say that. So the training Chad completed was the LEAD Academy through the League of Minnesota Cities. LEAD stands for Learn, Engage, Act for Effectiveness, and Develop within the organization. So with that, Mayor, I'd like to share a short video from the League of Minnesota Cities Executive Director, Dave Unmocked.
All right. Thank you, Director Vetter.
Greetings. My name is Dave Unmocked. I'm the Executive Director of the League of Minnesota Cities. The League is proud to partner with Sourcewell, Metropolitan State University, and the Association of Minnesota Counties to offer the LEAD Academy, an educational opportunity designed for employees who are supervisors or those that may be looking to move into a supervisory role. The LEAD Academy provides a unique option for cities to prepare emerging leaders with the skills needed to effectively lead within an organization. Those skills include conflict management, leading through change, encouraging and developing others, ethics, coaching, and even more. Being a great supervisor, as you know, is more than being a good subject matter expert. Learning how to lead, motivate, and influence people and teams takes practice and commitment to professional growth. In times like we are in now, focusing on professional growth and development is an important priority. I am proud of you and the City of Edina for participating in this program. I want to personally congratulate Chad Ishins for being one of the first graduates in the LEAD Academy. I wish you all the best in your local government career. When you go that extra mile to learn how to be a better leader, we know that you, your city, and the whole community are better for it. Chad, thank you very much. I look forward at some point in time to see you at a future League event, and I wish you all the best. Have a great day.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to share that video in recognition of Chad. Chad is within the meeting panelists this evening. He did have a few other agenda items on. If you would like to put him on the spot to say a few words.
Yes, I see he's humbly staying off video and audio, but here he comes. Chad, congratulations on completing the LEAD Academy work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the words.
Yeah, we've got an audio and a video problem. You're not coming through very well. There's a lot of breakup in your communication.
I apologize for that. Again, thank you for the kind words. The LEAD Academy was a great experience, and I'm glad I could take some things back and bring them back to the city.
And well, thanks for undertaking that professional advancement. I think it's terrific that you cared enough about the work that you do for the city and for yourself professionally to go through that experience. Too bad Member Staunton wasn't still on the League of Minnesota Cities board. He could have really provided a little bit more video for you as with Dave Unmocked. So, but nonetheless, we're really proud of you and thanks for doing that.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you at the rink.
Indeed.
Time.
Thank you.
Time. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Chad. All right. Director Vetter, anything else?
No, Mayor, thank you and the council for allowing a quick moment on your busy agenda to recognize Chad and for all the things you do to support all of the ongoing learning and development we do here at the City of Edina.
Okay, and thanks to you too, Director Vetter, for all the terrific work you're doing leading our Park and Rec Department. In this pandemic world, we know there's been all kinds of pressure on our Park and Rec system. So many people out using our facilities and taking advantage of our wonderful parks. And you're doing a terrific job of keeping everything up. So
thank you, Mayor. It's really a true team effort. We have a lot of dedicated individuals, and I will definitely pass that compliment along to the team. Thank you very much.
Right. And particularly here recently, thanks for getting over to Bredesen and cleaning up that graffiti work, that graffiti material that was on some of the trail system. So appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on now to public hearings. We've got 10 public hearings this evening, and we're going to start out with public hearing matter 8A, which is a matter handled by Jessica Wilson, and this is an aquatic vegetation potential special assessment for things that we do annually to try to keep some of our waters as clean as possible. And Ms. Wilson, are you with us?
Yes, I am here. I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead and start your staff report.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk with you. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to share a presentation that is part of the council packet. And I have a really quick presentation. So this is for aquatic vegetation improvement AQ20. This is resolution number 2020-100. The assessment is for city coordinated aquatic vegetation management services. So these are services that are requested by homeowners. It's not required by the city or the DNR. And aquatic vegetation management is guided by our local water plan, which we call our comprehensive water resources management plan. And in that plan, the city pays for algae treatments in eligible water bodies. So you'll see a credit for algae for each of these water bodies and the various services that they request. One change that was made this year, so in the past, the assessment period would go from July 16th to July 15th. So you'd get kind of a assessment for half a year amongst 2 different years. So I made the change this year to reset it so that we would be on the calendar year. So the assessments I'm presenting today are for just the second half of 2019. So they're smaller than they would have been if it would have been a typical assessment period. I made that change just to simplify the assessment so that services are for one continuous season versus a end of 1 year and the beginning of the next year. So you'll see that change listed out here in those the breakdown. So there's 4 water bodies. This first one is Arrowhead Lake. This Arrowhead Lake Association has incorporated in September 2015, although they've been eligible and have been receiving city coordinated services for many, many years, decades. So this includes aeration services, aquatic vegetation. So they have submerged aquatic plant destruction and algae treatments and a lake dye treatment. And then there's also some permitting and notice requirements. So the grand total split among those 36 units, the grand total is $5,945.92. And that breaks down to $165.16 per unit. And those units are shown in the map.
All right, thank you.
For Indian Head Lake, similar services, although they elected not to do submerged aquatic plant destruction, which was a move towards promoting clean water. And there's 33 accessible units there. The grand total for the services at Indian Head Lake was $27,262.11. So per unit, it breaks down to $826.12. At Lake Nancy, they receive a submerged aquatic plant treatment, and there's 20 accessible units there. The grand total, $1,040.66, split among those 20 units, breaks down to $52.03. And then at the mill pond, the grand total for the services there, the mechanical harvesting of aquatic vegetation, was $8,337.16. There's a tiered assessment for this water body. And so several properties were assessed at 1 REU at $166.08 each. And then 16 properties at a 2/3 REU assessed at $109.61 each. And then 8 properties at a 1/3 REU assessed at $54.81 each. So my recommendation to you tonight is to continue the public hearing and then consider adopting Special Assessment Resolution 2020-100 for improvement AQ20 at your October 20th meeting. And then I've summarized the per unit assessments again here.
Sure.
And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, any questions for Ms. Wilson from council members? All right, this is a public hearing matter. I'm going to open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council with respect to proposed resolution 2020-100, which would involve aquatic vegetation special assessments for the 4 bodies of water described, the Mill Pond, Lake Nancy, Arrowhead, and Indian Head Lakes? Director Benarod, anyone in the queue?
We do not have anyone on the line at this time. My watch shows that it's 8:11. Because there is a slight delay in the broadcast, I recommend that we wait until 8:12 before moving on. So I will watch my clock and let you know if I get a caller or when it's 8:12.
All right, thank you.
So I think you can move on with your agenda.
All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing at noon, October 14th, and continue the action on the resolution 2020-100 to the October 20 City Council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by member Staunton, second by member Fisher. With respect to the motion as stated, any further discussion? Roll call, please. Clerk Allison.
Member Anderson.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Fisher.
Aye.
Member Staunton.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. The motion passes. The matter will close in terms of the public hearing portion of it at noon on October 14th, and this matter will be continued for action at the October 20 City Council meeting. The next matter is a public hearing involving a proposed weed mowing special assessment, and Tom Swenson has this matter.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I would like to share my screen on this one too.
Yes, please do.
Let me pull up the correct one here. All right. So the first one on my list tonight is a weed mowing improvement, number WD20, resolution 2020-102. And just like previous years, I just do a quick run through on what's involved. In Edina, weeds shall be regularly cut or controlled such that no individual plant shall exceed at any time 10 inches in height or length as measured from the ground. When weeds exceed 10 inches in height, the weed inspector attempts to first reach the property owner in person, second by phone, and lastly by certified letter. Then the owner has 10 days to comply. Park maintenance staff at that point will cut the weeds, and the property will be assessed the cost of labor and equipment. For this year, we have 12 different properties that were cut by the park maintenance staff. Here's the first 5 properties and the next 5 properties and the final 2. And then it should be noted that there's also a $30 administrative fee that's tacked onto this. this slide is incorrect because we're delaying this action till October 20th, but at this point, I'd like to get any feedback or comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Swenson. Any council member have a question for Mr. Swenson on this matter? All right, this is a public hearing. Director Benrod, is there anyone in the queue that wishes to address this potential special assessment for weed mowing?
I still do not have anyone on the call. My watch shows 8:15, so I would recommend we wait until 8:16 before moving on, since there is a slight delay with broadcast. I'll watch my clock and let you know if I have a caller or when we're at 8:16.
All right, thank you.
So it's safe to move on.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing at noon on October 14th and continue the action on resolution number 2020-102 until the October 20 City Council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Member Brindle moves, Member Fisher second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, with respect to the motion as stated.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The matter is continued till the October 20 City Council meeting, and we'll leave the public hearing open until noon on October 14th. Mr. Swenson's on a roll here. He's got the next two matters as well. The next one involves potential special assessments for tree removal. Mr. Swenson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to share my screen again. And this item is a tree removal improvement number TR20, resolution 2020-103. Your city code, the tree inspector finds and controls the spread of diseased trees. We also are involved in clearance on roadways. Trees must be clear to a vegetative growth to a height of 16 feet above the curb or edge of the street. Pavement and sidewalks must be clear to a height of 8 feet. The city forester identifies diseased trees in clearance issues and safety issues and notifies the homeowner by registered mail, and they have 21 days to comply. Homeowners have the option to remove and dispose of them themselves. Two different properties this year had Dutch elm disease, and the city was tasked with removing the Dutch elm on these two properties. If the dollar amount is under $500, it's just a 1-year assessment. If it's $500 to $1,000, it's a 2-year assessment. So these are the two addresses where we did hire a contractor to remove Dutch elm disease trees. And again, there's also the $30 administrative fee. So again, the request is delayed till October 20th. And I'm here for any questions or comments.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Swenson? This is a public hearing matter. We're going to open it up for testimony, public input, potential public input on resolution 2020-103, which is the proposed tree removal special assessment on two properties in the city. Director Benrod, anyone in the queue?
I do have someone in the queue online now, but no one has indicated a desire to speak. If you'd like to speak, just a reminder that you need to press *1 on your telephone keypad to get in the queue. Otherwise, I think we should just wait, Your Honor, until 8:20 to see if we get any additional callers or anyone wishing to provide testimony. I'll watch my clock, and if I get an indication someone would like to speak or more callers, I will let you know. at 8:21. And I have no one coming forward to speak, so I think it's safe for you to move on.
Thank you, Director Benarott. Is there a motion by a council member to close the public hearing at noon, October 14th on proposed resolution 2020-103 and continue action on resolution 2020-103 to the October 20 city council meeting for final action?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by member Staunton, second by member Fisher. With regard to the motion as stated, any further discussion? Roll call, please, with respect to the motion as stated.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The resolution 2020-103 matter is continued to the October 20 city council meeting, and we'll close the public hearing on resolution 2020-103 at noon on October 14th. Mr. Swenson has one more matter for us to hear public testimony or potential public testimony on tonight, and that's resolution 2020-106, which is the potential maintenance special assessment on the Grandview Business District. Members, Mr. Swenson.
Thanks again. I would like to share my screen.
Go ahead.
So this one is the Grandview Maintenance Improvement G20 Resolution 2020-106. This map shows the area of the Grandview district where maintenance can occur and where properties are assessed. The assessable square footage in this zone is 465,000 square feet. For this assessment, the total cost was $2,871, which results in a proposed assessment of 0.62 cents per square foot. This graph shows the history of past assessments for these properties, and you can see it fluctuates from year to year depending on the activities. These are the individual properties and the dollar amounts that will be assessed if this is approved. And again, this request is really delayed until October 20th, so I'm here for any questions and comments tonight.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Swenson with regard to the proposed maintenance special assessment for the Grandview District? Mr. Swenson, do you know how this proposed assessment of 0.62 cents per square foot compares with the prior year's assessment?
Yeah, if you'd like, I can pull that screen up again.
Was it on there? I missed it.
Yeah, it was on there. It's similar to the last 3 years, but it's come down over the last 10 years. Would you like to see it?
No, it's fine. Your representation is fine. All right. This is a public hearing matter. Hearing no questions from council members, we'll open it up for public testimony with respect to anyone who wishes to testify regarding the proposed potential special assessment for the Grandview Business District. The line is now open. Director Benarott, anyone in the queue?
I do have some people on the call, but no one has indicated a desire to speak. As a reminder, once you've called in, to get in the queue to speak, I need you to press *1 on your telephone keypad. That's the asterisk sign, not the pound sign. That will that will get you in the queue with the operator and I can introduce you. Because we have many public hearings, it's possible those on the line aren't calling for this particular item. So I will continue to watch my leader view and let you know if someone decides they'd like to speak now. Otherwise, it's 8:25. I would recommend we move on at 8:26 as there is a slight delay in the broadcast and we want to make sure anyone who wants to call in has an opportunity to do so.
Agreed. Thank you. We'll wait for further information from you.
It is 8:26 and I do not have anyone in the queue, so I think it's safe to move on.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing at noon on October 14th with regard to potential adoption of Resolution 2020-106 and continue that action on Resolution 2020-106 to the October 20 City Council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Stoughton, second by Member Fisher. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, with respect to the motion, with regard to the motion as stated.
Member Anderson.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Fisher.
Aye.
Member Stoughton.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. The resolution or the motion is approved. The matter will be continued to action on the agenda on the October 20 meeting, and the public hearing will remain open on this matter until noon on October 14th. The next matter, Mr. Swenson, thank you for handling those three matters for us.
Yep.
The next matter is going to be handled by our facility manager, Derek Otten, and he's going to talk to us about the proposed special assessment for the France Avenue Business District, the 50th and France Business District. Mr. Otten?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. With permission, I'd like to share my screen now.
Yes, you're welcome to share your screen.
This is the assessment hearing for the 50th and France Avenue Business District. It's the 2020 maintenance improvement, number M20, and it's assessment number G20, excuse me, it's assessment number 20-101. This is a overview of the area in question. It is generally located north of 51st Street, south of Market Street, east of Highway 100, and west of France Avenue. The area is made up of 170 retail spaces. It includes sidewalks and pathways, 3 parking ramps, one of which is now located below the new Nolan Mains development along Market Street. And the areas that you're looking at right now shaded are those of private developments. Maintenance in this area includes snow removal, landscaping, trash and recycling services, general cleaning and maintenance of sidewalks and parking ramps, and also the salary for 1 full-time maintenance position. The assessable costs for 2020 are $345,983.53. The square footage for that is 424,504 square feet, which works out to be 0.815 cents per square foot. I would like to note that this is an increase from the 2019 assessable costs, and we were able to attribute that to additional snow removal labor. If you remember, in April and May of 2019, we had an unseasonably late winter and large amounts of snow accumulated during that time. And then also there is the cost to purchase equipment that was required with the new development that is known as Nolan Mains and our maintenance that takes place around there. So what was once a parking lot is now a developed area, a little more complex. This is a assessment history. You can kind of see the increase in costs. There was a slight decrease in 2017 and 18 to 19. And a lot of that was attributed to construction in the area and trying to reduce costs while those disruptions were happening. And now you're starting to see some of the impact of those additional assessable costs in the 2020 increase. My recommendation is we continue on with public hearing until October 14th, and then we consider approval during the October 20th City Council meeting for resolution number 2020-101 for improvement M20, the 50th and France Business District. And I have any questions?
All right, thank you, Manager Otten. Any questions for Manager Otten on this matter? All right, thank you, Manager Otten. We're going to open this up for public testimony with respect to the proposed maintenance assessment at 50th and France. Is there anyone in the queue to speak to this matter, Director Benarat?
Oh, sir, I still don't have anyone indicating a desire to speak. As a reminder to those in the line, to get in the queue to speak, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. I would recommend, it's 8:31, that we wait until 8:32 before moving on. We want to make sure we give anyone watching the meeting from home or online an opportunity to call in. There is a slight delay in the broadcast, so that will give them an opportunity to do so. So I'll just hang out here until 8:32. Shows it's 8:32, so I think it's safe for you to move on now.
All right, thank you, Director Benarat. Is there a motion to close the public hearing at noon on October 14th with regard to Resolution 2020-101 and to continue the matter for action to the October 20th City Council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Vendel, second by Member Fisher. Any further discussion with regard to the motion as stated? Roll call, please.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The motion passes, and we'll take this matter up at our October 20 City Council meeting for resolution, and the public hearing will continue to remain open until noon on October 14th. Manager Otten, thank you for joining us this evening for that matter. Appreciate you being here. And now we're going to go into a series of proposed special assessments that Director Milner will be handling. Some of the street projects, street reconstruction projects that we have been doing over the past few years. And it's time to think about special assessing on a final basis. So Director Milner, the first matter you have is the embodied in Resolution 2020-97, which is the Chowan Park A and B neighborhood roadway reconstruction project that we did a couple of years ago, and that's set for potential special assessment. Director Milner, you can take us through the matter.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Yeah, we're going to have 4 hearings here on our 2019 neighborhood street reconstruction project. So in the past, I'd usually present the findings of our resident survey. Those results are in the packet tonight, but we had a pretty low turnout of results. So instead of spending some time reviewing that with that low response rate, we only had 35 out of 400 plus residents participate. We just included that information in your packet. So here's the response rate over the last 5 or 6 years, just to show you where they've been. And last year was only an 8%. So we need to review how we do those surveys and maybe figure out a different way to do that to provide some good information back to the council from our residents in regards to our street reconstruction program. So starting with the Chowan Park A and B neighborhood, the project was located between 58th Street and 60th Street, between France Avenue and Xerxes Avenue. It did include a few gravel alleys between Zenith and Abbott, and York and Xerxes. So prior to tonight's meeting, we did receive 2 objections from 5924 Beard Avenue and 5905 Zenith Avenue. The street accounted for about 40% of the cost at just over $1.8 million. The other utility funds are shown there. The alleys, which are also assessed, was just over $75,000, and then there was a PAX component. So the assessments per residential equivalent unit, on the street assessment, we estimated $9,000 per RU. The number that we're proposing is $6,991.34. And for those properties that have an additional alley assessment, we estimated $3,500, and we're proposing an assessment of $1,212.93. Those are 22% and 65% decreases in our assessments from our estimates. We would again recommend continuing the public hearing until the 14th. Consider this resolution October 20th, and I would recommend you approve that resolution on October 20th. And I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Questions for Director Milner with regard to this proposed special assessment? All right, let's move into public testimony. There were a couple of written objections filed. I don't know if either of those gentlemen or anybody else from that neighborhood is on the line, but Director Benarott, can you provide any insight on that issue as we open this matter up for public testimony?
I still have people on the line, but no one has indicated a desire to speak. As a reminder, if you're on the line to testify in this matter, please press *1 on your telephone keypad to get in the queue. Otherwise, council, I would recommend we wait just a minute or so before moving on, as there is a slight delay in the broadcast. I'll watch my clock, and when it's 8:38, I'll let you know that we can move on unless we have a caller before then. You can move on now.
All right, thank you. So resolution 2020-97 is a potential roadway reconstruction special assessment for the Chowan Park A and B neighborhood. Is there a motion to close the public hearing on this matter at noon on October 14th on proposed resolution 2020-97 and continue that matter to the October 20 City Council meeting for a resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Member Fisher, second by Member Brindle. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Clerk Allison.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. Motion's approved. Matters continued to October 20 for resolution, and the public hearing will remain open until October 14th at noon. And next, Director Milner, is the proposed special assessment for a roadway reconstruction project in the Indian Hills neighborhood.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Indian Hills C neighborhood, embodied in BA 455. This project was 2 cul-de-sacs just off Gleason Road, so Gleason Terrace and St. Albans Circle. The street cost, which was 61% of the project cost, was $155,000. The remaining utility costs are shown there. That is a 22% decrease from what we estimated in the capital improvement plan. Using that assessment amount, we're estimating a final assessment amount per residential equivalent unit of $11,484.25. We've had a proposed assessment, estimated assessment of $13,300. So that is a 14% decrease from our estimated preliminary assessment. We would continue this until October 14th and have council consider the approval on October 20th, and staff would recommend approval of this special assessment embodied in Resolution 2020-98, and I can stand for any questions.
Questions for Director Milner regarding Resolution 2020-98 or improvement VA 455? All right, let's open this matter up for public testimony. Director Benarott?
I do not have anyone in the queue yet. I show it's 8:40. At 8:41, I will let you know. I think it's safe to move on as there is a slight delay in the broadcast, or of course, I'll let you know if we have a caller before then.
All right, Director Milner, I noticed there were no written objections on this matter filed. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Callers indicating a desire to speak, I think it's okay for you to move on now.
All right, thank you. All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing at noon on October 14th regarding Resolution 2020-98 and continue the matter for resolution at the October 20 City Council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Staunton, second by Member Brindle to adopt the motion as stated. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Clerk Ellison.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The motion is approved. The matter involving Resolution 2020-98 continued to the October 20 City Council meeting, and the public hearing will remain open until noon, October 14th, for submission of written comments or telephonic comments or electronic comments. So now on to public hearing. Next matter, 2020-99, which is Indian Trails B and C neighborhood. Director Milner.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is embodied in improvement number VA 452. Project was along Sally Lane, Comanche Court, Paiute Pass, Paiute Circle, included Shawnee and Overholt Pass, and Bellow Drive. There were three objections. They were located at, so far, 7009, 7020, and 7024, all on Sally Lane. The cost, the street accounted for 46% of the project, just over $885,000. The utility funds are shown there, and they accounted for the remainder of the project. Using that assessment amount, we're estimating an assessment per residential equivalent unit of $10,057.46. That is 19% less than our estimated assessment, $12,475. We would again recommend continuing the public hearing until October 14th, where the council will consider approval on October 20th. Staff would recommend the special assessment, approving the special assessment embodied in resolution number 2020-99. I would stand for questions, but then I had one more comment maybe for Councilmember Brindle to consider. I recall during the preliminary assessment, she reclused herself from this matter because she does live within the project area. So just wanted to remind Councilmember Brindle to see if she still felt that was necessary at this point. And I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Milner. Member Brindle, are you prepared to vote to assess yourself?
I guess I am.
Attorney Knudsen, is that an issue? Should Member Brindle be voting on this? Is there an ethical issue here?
She can vote on it.
All right.
Members of the
All right.
council, I do not have anyone in the queue right now. As a reminder to those on the line, please press *1 on your telephone keypad if you would like to provide testimony in this matter. Because there is a slight delay in the broadcast, I would recommend we may wait a minute or so before moving on, as we want to make sure anyone who wants to speak tonight has an opportunity to do so. My clock shows it's 8:46, so I will watch it, and when it's 8:47 or when I have a caller, I will let you know.
All right, and just to make the record clear, I'll open it up now for public testimony. This is with regard to proposed resolution 2020-99.
We have no one in the queue, and it's 8:47, so I think it's safe to move on. Mayor Hovland, I am sorry I jumped the gun there on you before.
Oh, that's all right. I went into kind of a mute mode there, so it was my fault for not keeping up the rhythm of the thing. My apologies as well. So with regard to resolution 2020-99, is there a motion to close the public hearing on that matter at noon on October 14th and then continue it for action to the October 20 City Council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
And a motion by Member Brindle, seconded by Member Fisher, to close the public hearing at noon on October 14th on resolution 2020-99, which is involving the Indian Trails B and C neighborhood roadway reconstruction special assessment, and continue the matter for action to October 20th City Council meeting. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Clerk Allison.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The motion is approved as stated. Next matter Director Milner has as well. It is resolution 2020-104, which is a potential roadway reconstruction special assessment in the Todd Park neighborhood.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Like you mentioned, Todd Park E neighborhood, the street reconstruction project from last year. These were the last couple gravel streets we had in town. So Motor Street, just south of 44th Street, and then Brookside Terrace, which is just north of 44th Street. The street accounted for 44% of the project at just over $59,000, and the remaining utility funds dollars are shown. The estimated assessment was $11,700 per RU. We're proposing a final assessment of $11,832.11. That is a 1% increase, or $132.11 more than we had estimated prior to the project. We would recommend continuing the public hearing until October 14th, council considering approval on October 20th, and I would recommend you approve special assessments embodied in resolution 2020-104. I can stand for any questions.
Questions for Director Milner? All right, let's open this matter up for public testimony. This is resolution 2020-104, proposed for adoption by staff. It involves the Todd Park neighborhood and a roadway reconstruction special assessment. in that neighborhood, as described by Director Milner. Is there anyone in the queue, Director Benarat, that wishes to testify regarding this proposed special assessment?
There is no one in the queue at this point. I will watch my clock for the next minute or so, and I will let you know if we have any callers or anyone interested in providing testimony. I think it's safe for you to move on.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing at noon on October 14th with regard to proposed resolution 2020-104 and continue the action on that item to the October 20 City Council meeting?
So.
Second.
Member Fisher moves, Member Brindle seconds. The motion as stated. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, with respect to the motion to close the public hearing at noon on October 14th on Resolution 2020-104. Continue that action on that item to the October 20 City Council meeting.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The motion passes as stated. Director Milner, thanks for your good work on all those street reconstruction projects. Incidentally, I have to tell you while you're with us here that 66th Street and Valley View look so good. Just fantastic work over there to improve those streets. Really should make people feel good about how we're taking care of the things in our town that we want together.
Yeah, I'll pass that along to the Public Works Department. They did that themselves over on 66th Street. So
I could see our own equipment over there, and I was really proud of those guys for undertaking a pretty good sized project themselves and doing a wonderful job.
Yep.
So
thank you, Mayor.
All right, now the last public hearing matter we have tonight, Chris Hocker, our assistant planner, has the matter, and it involves an appeal of a planning commission approval for first floor height and front yard setback variance at 4209 Crocker Avenue. And Ms. Hocker, if you want to lead us through your staff report and the planning commission outcome, that would be helpful to us to start the matter. We had you there for a minute, Ms. Hocker. You can share. Okay. You can share. Feel free to share your screen.
Okay, so this is a neighbor variance appeal for a new home proposed at 4209 Crocker. It's resolution number 2020-105. It is a 2.6 foot first floor height and an 18.2 foot front yard setback variance for a new home build approved by the Planning Commission on March 11th and reaffirmed on August 28th for a revised stormwater management plan. So the subject property is located on the east side of Crocker as highlighted. The previous home has since been removed. It was a Rambler with an attached garage, two-car garage. It was a walkout. This is the house prior to demo, front elevation, and then there's some pre-demo photos that were taken in May before the home was torn down along the backside and towards the rear yard. So the two variances that were requested and approved by the Planning Commission in March and in August were for a 2.6 foot first floor height variance and an 18.2 foot front yard setback variance. All plans for the project are the same, with the exception of the revised grading and drainage stormwater management plan. The applicant decided to change that plan because it was approved as part of the original March 11th approval package. They had to return to the Planning Commission, which they did on August 28th, to have that reviewed as well as the entire project. And the Planning Commission reaffirmed the approval unanimously that evening. So all plans for the project do remain the same. This is a survey of the previous home before it was torn down. You can see that they have a 36.7 foot front yard setback originally when the home was built. There were no variances required. It did meet the ordinances at the time. The ordinance now requires that since the house has been removed, they have their choice of matching the front yard setback of 4213, which is 58.2 feet. That's the property directly to the south, or they can average all of the front yard setbacks that are along that side of the block between intersections. The average is a little bit better at 56.9 feet, but they had submitted a proposal that would be at the former a little over 38 or 37 foot front yard setback. So the average is 56.9 feet. The request is for 38.7. The variance that was needed was 18.2 feet. The areas that have been highlighted, or the addresses that have been highlighted, are addresses that are less than the average along the block. So there are some that are deeper or further away from the block, but there are also some that are closer than what is being proposed and also what the average is on the block. So this is the March 11th, 2020 Stormwater Management Plan, the original plan that was approved as part of the package. It included some underground storage for stormwater. There are two flood shapes that affect this property. The first floor elevation request actually reflects the fact that they have to elevate the basement given the flood elevation. And in order for them to raise that basement floor, then that in turn affects the first floor elevation, so that they have requested a variance of 2.6 feet to elevate the first floor, which in turn elevates it 3.6 feet from the existing first floor elevation. That allows them to have 8-foot ceilings in the basement, and it also then compensates for the fact that you have to elevate that basement. So this is the revised plan that the homeowner would like to use as part of the package that was approved on August 28th. It removes those storage areas, underground storage areas in the back, and then they have mitigated flood area in the back of the property. So this is the basement's floor plan of the building. It's 1,363 square feet, 780 square foot sport court for a total of 2,143 square feet. Main floor is 1,569 square feet. That doesn't exclude the garage area. And then the second floor is 1,621 square feet for a total of 5,333 square feet. The overall building height still is well within the overall height requirement as measured from average existing grade. It'll be a little under 33 feet. The maximum allowable is 36.2 feet. This is the rear elevation. It originally had been a walkout home. It is now a lookout. They've had to make sure that the low openings are also up to the level that is required for the flood elevation. This is the south elevation that is affecting the neighbors to the south. And then a street view showing the home that's directly to the south and the home to the north. The home to the north fronts West 42nd Street, so their side elevation is facing Crocker, and they have their single stall garage that's adjacent to the north side of the proposed home. So the Planning Commission findings, the proposed house matches the previous front yard setback. The proposed home design elevates the lowest level of the dwelling unit 2 feet above the flood elevation, which is a goal of the city to remove flood-prone properties when given the opportunity. The variance allows the new home to be elevated out of the flood zone, provide on-site storm water storage, and maintain the required distances between neighbors. And still wouldn't be any closer to the street than the previous home. They want to maintain that non-conforming setback. The plan provides the required elevated basement while still complying with that maximum overall height requirement as measured from average existing grade. And the maximum height from existing grade will conform, or the first floor height will conform to the 3.6 foot increase of the first floor elevation. Will allow for 8 foot ceilings in the basement. The home is appropriate in size and scale for the lot and will be well under the maximum allowable building coverage. It will be at about 18.5%. The maximum coverage could go up to 25%. So the house could theoretically be larger in footprint and also taller. This is a variance appeal by Tim and Susan Grudel at 4213 Crocker. They are appealing the Planning Commission's variance approval. Brett and Sarah Brohl at 4209 Crocker. The owners and applicants for the variance are present, as is Mike Linder with MJL Homes, who is the builder that they've hired for 4209 Crocker. This is for resolution 2020-105. And I believe we also have Ross Bintner with our engineering service manager here as well. And with that, I will stop and answer any questions you may have.
All right. Questions for Ms. Ocker at this point in time? Ms. Ocker, did you indicate to the appellants, the Grudels, and to the owners, the Brohls, any constraints on time or rough frame of reference on the time they'd have to make their presentations? They've both done an effective job in writing, I think, of stating their respective positions.
I indicated that we generally give 10 to 15 minutes, but you're right, they did give us quite a bit of information. Yeah, it was well done. Typical Edina residents, smart and capable and articulate, both of them. All right, Mr. Grudel, let's see. Any questions for Ms. Ocker, though? Ms. Ocker, that there was, I don't remember if it was in the presentations from the Brohls or was part of the record from the city, but there was an indication, as I recall, that this property at 4209 Crocker has been kind of the gathering point for neighborhood water in the backyard. And is that true, or is it just handling its own stormwater? I believe that it's the low point. It does seem to collect water. I would think engineering would have a better perspective on that than I. That's right. We got Mr. Bittner with us, don't we? He can maybe answer that question.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Les Bittner, Engineering Services Manager. Yes, this is a landlocked basin, and it collects water from nearby properties. It's a pretty small drainage basin, just a handful of properties. It collects water from a handful of properties. Does it collect water from Mr. Grudel's and Mr. and Mrs. Grudel's property? Yes, it does. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
I have a question on that. Yes. So, Ross, would you please come back? So if I understand correctly, and I missed it in what I read about this item, that the underground storage containers are being removed?
That was a choice of the applicant. The applicant in their initial application included a mix of above ground and underground storage. And they have provided a lot of commentary on that decision. But then this revised application does not include the underground storage. It's functionally equivalent from our point of view.
It's functionally equivalent to what? I'm not following.
Right. The purpose that we have is to make sure that homeowners don't push risk off to private properties. And to do that, we ask them to look at the flood elevations before and after, or in existing conditions and in proposed conditions. And in the proposed conditions here, we see no increase in risk. In fact, with the reduction of overflow from Crocker Avenue by raising the grade on the side yards and the grade at the house, we see a reduction in risk here.
Okay. But would it be advantageous to still have the underground containers?
That is a choice of the applicant. That's not something that we're going to mandate or require. We asked them to meet a performance standard, and they've met it with both proposals.
Okay. All right. Very good. That was my question. Thank you.
So what they're proposing is a rain garden in lieu of underground storage system, which
right.
The inference I got was that it was a cost issue, and that's why they came back to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Fisher.
So, Mr. Bentner, I know I read someplace that the new solution is actually it performs just slightly better than even the underground storage. Is that because the storage area is just larger than original?
That's right.
Okay. I kept reading in the packet about our rules that require, essentially, I'm going to way oversimplify this, but you have to keep the stormwater on your property. Is that not the case?
That's not the case, no.
So what is that rule really telling us then?
So we're asking them to make sure that there's no net risk increase to nearby private properties. Because this is a landlocked basin, they have additional challenges. Right now, water doesn't flow out of this basin in the 10-year event, or about a 5-inch event. It does in the 100-year. It heads to the east into an outlet on a neighboring property. So they're challenged there. We didn't want to see water coming off the site in smaller vents or to a greater extent, so they had to find a way, and they chose to keep the size of the storage in place by regrading it and reconfiguring it.
I mean, part of the story is what's happening to the water that shows up here, and it's a low spot. I understand that. But I always, and maybe I've just been misunderstanding that, up the hill as houses are being built, I always thought they had to retain the stormwater on their property for some amount of time. And what I'm hearing you say is that no, if in the past you just pushed your water to your neighbor, you can still do that. You just can't do any more than that.
Right. We're looking for no net increase in risk.
So it's still a bummer for the bottom of the hill people.
Yeah. There's no substitute for elevation in homes and property.
Yeah. Okay. So the neighbors uphill from this that water can go, the minute the rain hits the property, it can just keep shedding it off down the hill without retaining it for any amount of time, even in a new construction? As long as it doesn't do more than what it did in the last version of that.
Right. Yeah, we're looking for the care being taken to not increase the risk.
I don't know why I've misunderstood that all this time. I thought we were try to over time get people to hold on to that stormwater a little while longer. But that's another discussion. So we'll get back to this one. Thank you.
this causes me to think of the rural property as a residential equivalent of 66 to 6800 France Avenue, or 7200 France Avenue might be a better example, where because it's a low spot in the commercial district, it's gathering property at 7200 from 10 different properties, and here at 66 to 6800, it's gathering water from neighboring properties too. So it's yeah, it's just something to keep in mind as we talk about this. And what you're saying, I think, is that the proposal from the Rolls to put in a rain garden is functionally equivalent to what would have happened with an underground storage tank. In fact, it maybe has a little bit more capacity for storage. And to Member Fisher's point, they're still going to end up being the recipient of everybody else's water that's upstream or uphill from them, or upgrade from them. Maybe a better way to put it. Is that right? But they just can't push. If other properties get developed to the north of them, they just can't. They can't push more water off on the rural property than they're pushing off there now. And the Bros are trying to figure out how to deal with it because they want to build it. Is that right? Or I guess you don't know the answer to that. I guess that's a question for the Bros. All right. Okay. Let's go to Mr. Grudel and Mr. and Mrs. Grudel for Tim and Susan Grudel and find out what their concerns are.
All right. Thank you very much. Am I ready?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Grudel.
Okay. Let me try to figure out how to share this. I'm not very technical, so let me give this a shot. Okay, you guys see this?
We do.
Okay, yep. Awesome. Thank you. And thank you all, City Council. Thanks to Planning Commission. Appreciate it all. So just as a context, you know, and I guess the numbers now we can update the square foot size, but, you know, my wife and I have lived in Morningside for 24 years. We were at the house in the top in the green at 4217 West 42nd from 96 to 2009. And then when we had an opening, we went and bought the house that we live in now, which is just below the property at 4213 Crocker in 2009. In 2009, we went ahead and did a tear down, similar house to what the Bros had. But we worked within all of the parameters that the city has laid out as far as, you know, just all the building codes. Okay, we wanted to stay within the guidelines and to, you know, again, make the process a lot easier. We would love to have built the house further forward because we would have had more room in the back. We'd love to put it higher to reduce the risk for some of the water. But we stayed within it and we worked with our builder, and, you know, we did a lot of diligence up front by doing soil samples, you know, and again, working within the structure. We also kept one of the trees in the front to kind of provide more cover for our house and just, again, to fit better with the character. During the construction, we even found that we had to spend another $70,000 in engineered soil, along with putting pilings on the north side of our property to support our garage. Right? When we built it, we had to put in a couple of sump pumps to, you know, provide some remediation in case there was water. They didn't run until 2014, and I would love to find out from Mr. Bittner, you know, what else is maybe happening, because they didn't run until 2014 at all, and now they run at various amounts during the season. They haven't run for the last couple months because we haven't had a ton of water. So that's a little context of where we are. I mean, for those of you who've driven by this property, I'm not sure how many of you make it down Crocker. It's a beautiful area. I highly recommend it. But this is the property, and again, as I said, it is the low spot. In fact, on this picture, just on the other side, there's actually, and Mr. Bittner could probably talk about it more. There's a backflow in Jonathan's yard behind it. So if the water's too high by Morningside or by Weber Park Pond, it actually backflows into not technically the Broles lot, but into Jonathan's lot, and then could fill up the back. So it's actually not only landlocked, but also has a backwards, whatever the proper term is, for handling of water. Okay. Also, I want to commend the City Council and Mr. Bittner and the work they've done with the Morningside Flood Infrastructure Project. If you haven't seen it, the animations, I've got links on here. So all of the graphics and the animations are amazing to kind of show you what the water looks like at the 1%, which is kind of 100 years, but a 1% event, they said, happens every, 25% chance of happening during your mortgage. So our lot is highlighted. The Broles lot is the darkest blue area one above it. So again, more detail. So this is the lot to the north of us. You'll notice the old house that was there, and all of this was modeled with the old house and the old grading. And so the dark blue would be at a 10% chance. That's the level of water that would be in there if it's a 4.3-inch rain within 24 hours. So, and then on ours, and our big concern is, there's all this blue water around it now with a house on that spot that's significantly bigger than the other one. How much additional water is going to come on to our land because theirs is elevated and so much bigger? Another one, again, it's just amazing what the work they have done, because you can find in Google Maps or Google Earth animation, so you can actually zoom in and see how all this water works. And again, so it's great work, and it's really compelling and surprising how much water is really simulated to be there. And it just stressed more the concern we have. Up here in the front, this is the front of our yard. So if there's more height in the house, how is that going to go backfill all this, and what's it going to do to our existing, to all existing water issues? More YouTube data. Again, the animations they have are amazing. So this is that 1%. And if you actually saw it and you can actually watch the video, this actually at the 1% shows the water flowing backwards into the yard and how that'll happen. In that 1% scenario. This is the 10% scenario. So again, pretty significant water concerns there. This is kind of footage of a real life example when, again, this is from October of 18, where the water, wasn't even a huge storm, but the water can really back up there. There's our neighbor's driveway where it's filling the driveway. There's been other situations where the water's actually even come up into our yard and filled up our rain garden from the backflow. Another view. So another part of the issue we have is when you look at their grading plan, the diagram shows the water supposedly running this way. But if you look at the elevations, this is 874.82. Our driveway is 874.77, and it goes up to 874.96 here. So to me, that is a net flow of this way, not that way. And there's definitely some flow that way, but there's still obviously more flow our way. And when you looked at the prior slides, that just is significantly more concerning for us because because we weren't able to elevate our house, our driveway is pretty flat, and so any slight increase will go right back up into our house. The next concern and issue we have is around just the setback. So obviously the comprehensive plan talks about maintaining the essential character of the neighborhood. Ms. Acker presented a bunch of information about the street. And for those of you who have driven down the street, the top of the hill are a lot of the older houses, very nice and quaint. They're all on 50-foot lots. As you work your way down the street, they get to 90-foot lots. And so while the setback there in the top part of the neighborhood is 50-foot lots, as you get to the bottom, and I just did an average of the closest 10 to us. If you look at the closest 10 to us, which is kind of really, and when you get down the bottom of the hill, it's kind of a different character. The setback in those houses is 67.81 feet. So it would even make that variance for them, and significantly more than the 18.8 to maintain the character. Okay. Did someone message? You know, if we had some simulations, and again, you probably, if you saw some of the other submissions from previous works, you know, a number of the neighbors have put a lot of time into this because they're obviously very concerned about it. You know, so it's hard to simulate what a house that is elevated 3 feet and is significantly bigger going to look like when it's up on the street. And so we tried to put some simulations there because that's really our big concern is as you're driving down the road and you come down, you'll see this massive house close to the street. Again, not in the character of Morningside. There's also some options about the retaining wall. And again, we're not hydrologists or the proper term, but it was hard to understand how much you could set it back or not. This was the actual design that was approved on January 30th. And here's where it has, you know, enough land or enough area back here to cover this. And the retaining wall is further back. So this kind of shows, you know, where that is. And so the retaining wall is here with that approved plan. If they, and again, I'm not the hydrologist, but my wife talked to Zuli on the morning of the 26th and asked if the grading plan from January 30th met the water requirements, and she said it did. So, you know, one of the scenarios that we kind of threw out but was refuted was, you know, couldn't you at least move it back this far? And, you know, which, you know, is 1 inch is on the scale is 30 feet. You know, you could move it back significantly, but you might have to change your design of your house a little bit. And to this point, there have been 0 modifications to the house design in the whole process. So that's, but there's something there that could happen. And I'm going through it quickly because I appreciate it's late and so the next is the issue in the comments in some of the planning commission meetings of the owners are going to maintain or keep the same footprint of the old house. Well, the old house, as you can see, was a single story rambler at ground level. Okay. The new house, as I kind of showed, goes up 3 feet and it's significantly higher. So here's kind of that simulation where, you know, there's the garage of the neighbors, you know, there's our house, and then that's the size of their house. And it's going to be, you know, as I said, significantly farther forward than kind of the setback allows. So you're going to be driving down the street and you're going to see this massive house right up on the street and really change the character of the neighborhood. So, I mean, love it if we could have had it, but, you know, I mean, they even have a sport court in there. I don't think there's any other indoor sport courts in Edina. So, you know, again, trying to show some other samples so that you could really, you know, because it's hard to really tell how big something's going to look. So it's hard to see how it would really look. But you can see the other house here, single story, kind of sits there. This next house is, as if you could see how it is relative to ours, is going to be that much higher and up forward. So the essential character is really a big concern, along with the water issues that would come flowing off of their lawn into ours with, again, a very slight grading in the yard. So there's some other things that we also want to talk about from the process, which isn't necessarily as much about the variance, but I just wanted to call attention to the building process and how can we make sure that we're safe. Because on the night or a night or two before it was going to get torn down, our neighbor in our old house, Rod Scholl, was outside on his deck and he smelled gas, and he went over to the house and he's an engineer, so he went over to the house with a gas sensor that he happened to have. It sensed gas. He called the police or the fire department. They came over and they said there wasn't a problem. He still wouldn't let it go, called Excel eventually, and it turned out that they'd never turned the gas off. So they had 2 gas lines in the house, and one of them was off, but the other one wasn't. So So I don't know how that got missed. And, then additionally, I'm not a builder, so I don't know how it works, but, they only had a demolition permit. This was the backyard, but during that demolition permit, when the house was over here and torn down, they were still doing a lot of work in the back, bringing in boulders and doing a lot of additional work that, again, I'm not a builder, but it seemed to me like it's a lot more grading or something else. So concern about, if the project goes forward, how are we going to keep track of that? Because this is what it's like now. So, and then, yeah, so I think that's really kind of our summary. Kind of the final comment is, though, that the whole process, this is the last thing we want to do. We built a house. We tried to make sure that we were 100% in compliance because we wanted the neighbors, to coexist with the neighbors. And, so we didn't want to be the ones who have to be kind of upholding the rules that the city and the planning commission and the long-term plan have laid out. If you guys want to allow huge houses far forward with variances, it would make it a lot easier, because there was a lot of people that were questioning this or had concerns about this, but now have kind of backed down, because we all, we love Morningside, we want to get along, and this is not a fun process for us. I'm sure Brett and Sarah, this is miserable for them. So just as a comment to figure out how that could work better would be fantastic. So thanks. We oppose it because of the water issues, as you could see. And if you drive down here, it's there. The essential character, big house really far forward, and then that setback. So that is it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Girdle. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Girdle? Member Fisher?
Mr. Girdle, I'm just curious. So this came back to the Planning Commission only because they were going to change the stormwater solution. What made you decide to appeal this decision compared to the original decision?
Well, we're not hydrologists, but it was, we assumed that the tanks would go ahead and provide a ton of storage for water so that we wouldn't have a pond in the backyard. And then when they're taking that out, we start, and the Planning Commission said, not only is it just as good as the other one, it's actually better. It was very confusing to us, and so we started to dig in more about like what's really happening with the water and what's really going on in this process. So then we dug into all that Morningside floodwater issues, and just so many things started to pop up. But that was what really got us to really dig in and say, hey, if they were going to spend that much money and the city thought it was the right thing, great. But when it came back and the message was, no, it's actually better than that effort, I didn't make sense. And so I started to dig in and saw all this Morningside information and said,
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions for Mr. Girdle? Mr. Girdle, do you concur that at times your new house is in a situation where there's water discharge off your property onto the Broll property?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And when that house was there before, the old Rambler, do you have any knowledge as to whether or not there was discharge from that property onto the Broll property? And there were two Ramblers sitting side by side, The
old house before us?
Correct.
The house we bought?
Yep.
Yeah, no, there was, because it was, they didn't have sump pumps, I don't think, because I don't think there was no water issues back then.
Okay. Yeah, there has been some climatic things going on, of course, too. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Bittner, what has to happen? Goes to one of Mr. Girdle's concerns. What has to happen in terms of a rain event for water on the Broll property to affect the Girdle property? Because I think, isn't Mr. Girdle higher from an elevation standpoint than the Broll property? We've been hearing for a half hour or so now, and from reading materials, that the Broll property is a low spot in the neighborhood. So what has to happen or what's already maybe happened to the Girdle property by the time water on the Broll property would go back to the Girdle property?
Yeah, I can bring up a grading plan if it would help.
I think just your general answer would be adequate. I mean, I'm just trying to understand what Mr. Goodall's worried about.
I haven't spent a lot of time assessing the risks to the property to the south, but it does seem to sit higher in the grading plan, and the low area, it would take. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would have to compare the risk elevations to the elevations, but the current proposal doesn't block any flow paths or doesn't seem to raise any red flags for me in terms of risk going uphill.
All right, thank you. That's all I had. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Brett and Sarah Roll, would you like to respond to Mr. Goodall?
Yeah. Yep. I'll start off and just say, Mayor, Commissioners, thank you very much for your time and for listening to our situation. As Mr. Grudel pointed out, it has not been an easy one, and we hope we can move forward. But again, thank you for your time. We feel like we've laid everything out via the documents provided, very well, and I want to make sure we're respectful of time given all the detail that's in there.
Yeah, I mean, and so again, I won't rehash what we submitted. One thing that I think that is maybe that's not in the document that we submitted is that while it might seem that this to a lot of people that this is the first iteration of our plan, we purchased the property back in June of 1999, and we spent 8 months working with engineers and working with the city and working with our builder to continually change our plan, actually, to come up with a plan that would work, and did things like remove the walkout and did things like, made sure that we reduced the height of different ceilings and things like that. So we would be underneath the allowed city requirement, even though we had to move the house up because of water requirements. So, and that's probably something to Tim's point around, the communication process. We probably failed there of not like starting earlier on, communicating that. But it was, the plan that we proposed to the city back in March was not the first attempt at us building or coming up with a plan for the city. It was it was working to come up with something that would work for the lot, and work for us. So that's one thing that I would say, just, broadly speaking. The one other thing that I'd point out is the one house, actually, and I did put this in the letter we submitted, but the house to the south side of us, which is not a Crocker Avenue house, we're actually just under 30 feet behind that house. So that house, the wall that is adjacent to Crocker, it's on 42nd Street. And so we are significantly further behind that house. We're actually further behind that house than the Grudel's house is behind ours. And as far as like size and scale, I mean, even on the map that Mr. Grudel, that Tim showed, I mean, there's a house right across the street that's bigger than ours. I believe the Grudel's house is approximately the same size as ours. I don't have their blueprints, but according to Zillow, it's about the same size as ours next door. There's a house like right behind us that's about 7,000 square feet. So, as far as size, scale, mass of the house, I believe that it's really is in line with the rest of Morningside and the neighborhood. Actually, yeah, and so that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them about the process, about anything else, about any other questions that are brought up. But we did lay out in our letter, so I'll keep it kind of short and sweet on our side.
Mr. Brohl, you might want to answer Member Brindle's question about why you decided to go from the underground storage and the tubing to the rain garden concept.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, the underground tubing was a selfish thing, actually. We were doing that because we wanted to have more flat backyard. And so all the underground tubes did was it provided us ability to basically put dirt on top of them and then grass on top of them so we could have more usable backyard. We have two little boys, so we have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old boy, and we wanted to have flat backyard for them to play on. And so that was the original game plan, but it doesn't actually change the water storage capacity in the back. And then and that was the plan we initially submitted because we were trying a zillion different ways to figure out how to have some flat backyard. when we finally figured out the actual cost of that, it came back at it was a very significant cost that basically made it the property unfinanceable. And so we instead of that, we basically had to go back to right now, just to give you guys an idea, like about half of the lot, it's a 200 by 90 lot, or 90 wide, 200 deep. About half the lot is used for the storage of water right now. And so we were trying to have a little bit more of that usable backyard, which is why we had the pipes originally. So it wasn't. It was more of a selfish wanting to have some more usable flat backyard for us than it was a requirement of the city.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. and Mrs. Brohl from council members? All right. This is a public hearing matter, and there may be others that wish to testify. And so let's open this up for public testimony, and we'll go back to Director Benarott and see if she has anybody in the queue who wishes to testify on this matter.
I do, Your Honor. Operator, will you please unmute the line of Mr. Rod Shaw? Rod, once your line has been unmuted, please begin by stating your full name and address, including apartment or suite number if applicable.
Yes, my name is Rod Scholl. I'm at 4217. Thank you. My name is Rod Scholl. I'm at 4217 West 42nd Street. I sympathize with Brett and the developers, and I agree a person is free to build with whatever they want on their property within the rules. And I think variances are a chance for us to evaluate for the common good in a neighborhood, especially if we're going to grant an exception, while also, of course, considering the needs of others. I do not support the variance. I think a large view, the city will be approving to accommodate a drier, flatter yard, as Grudel showed. They can move the house back. It just would be a different plan, which was, I imagine, a wetter plan for them. 10 feet of that 18-foot variance is to accommodate a deck. So most of that variance is not even to accommodate the house. And on that property, we'll be adding more hardscaping, essentially the largest home in the area on the most challenging property in the area. I live in this neighborhood. I don't know what house he's referring to behind that is 7,000 feet. He might mean further away, 7,000 square feet. One can always make an argument about locality. Obviously there's probably larger homes 3 miles away, and I don't know how we define locality, but I'm assuming let's use 200 feet since that's who was notified about this area, and that's probably where most of the interest is generated. But I've already provided a bunch of input to the Planning Commission earlier on. It might be worth a read. Tim's reused some of that. It was basically 10 pages of details and images. And I bring that up because since that meeting, I've had 6 neighbors approach me and thank me in serious depth about being that voice. And yet no one else spoke up then, and I'm sure no one else will speak up. I imagine no one else will speak up tonight because I don't blame them. No one wants to be in this process. I don't want to be in this process. We want to delegate this process to the city and assume that it was all going to unfold without us having to pay attention. But once we saw the Planning Commission meetings, I'm just a little surprised that they don't seem interested in their having taken actions which already have changed the water flow in the neighborhood without having a permit. They seem incurious, and when they've asked for an explanation, the developer just said that he didn't get around to picking up the permit. And now they excavated to the unapproved plan, or what is about to be approved. So maybe that's just how things are done around here, and permits aren't taken that seriously, but it gives me pause. And then when I see them putting in shoring walls, and we said, oh, wait, they're proceeding. I guess they got their approval to build. Well, the shoring wall's on the north side of the property, but I was assured by the city that that was necessary to remove the remaining basement wall. The remaining basement wall is on the opposite side of the property. Oh, I see, on the south side. So I'm not going to argue with something that's plain to my eyes. No rendering of this property was provided, only a head-on view. It seems to me the Planning Commission is not giving a rigorous view of it. Now, you add in your gas explosion, which occurred, and it makes me think this entire process doesn't have enough eyes on it, and they don't have fair eyes on it.
Mr. Scholl, you'll have to wrap up your comments. Your time is, your 3 minutes has lapsed.
Yes, no, I appreciate that, and we put a lot of input, and I can still put input in writing, before the 14th. So, this is small potatoes, and I realize that, and I apologize that we're wasting all of our time on what's important to us in the small scale, but there are bigger problems in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Scholl.
Members of the council, I do not have any other callers on the line right now, as there is a slight delay in the broadcast, and we want to make sure we give people an opportunity to call in if they're interested. I would recommend we wait a minute or so before we move on with this item. So I'm watching my clock at 9:41. I will let you know it's time to move on, or of course, I'll let you know if I have a caller before then. I think you can move on.
Thank you. Council members, any other questions before we entertain a motion? All right.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question, and this might be for Chris. But if this wasn't a tear down and a rebuild, would somebody have been able to just add on a story to the Rambler that was there, just as it sat? Or do our rules? Because that one was not. It's the city that's causing this new homeowner to elevate the lower level of the house, because we want them out of the floodplain. We don't want houses to flood. So can you speak to that? If it wasn't a tear down, would we be even having this conversation?
I guess it just depends upon what they had planned to do with the existing home. We do have alternate setbacks that allow standards that allow some additions. It would have been on the same floor. If they wanted to put a second floor on the existing home, they would have had to address that front yard setback. Typically, Planning Commission has been sympathetic. If somebody has a house and they want to add on to it and they want to go up and the house is already at that setback, it's been, a variance that has been approved in the past at times. So I guess it just depends upon what they would have wanted to do with the existing structure.
But why would they even? Really, we would make somebody apply for a variance just to add on to the house that's. It's already been historically sitting there.
For the second floor, yes, it would require a variance.
Okay.
But if it had non-conforming side yard setbacks on the same floor, they could have added to that same floor at the non-conforming side yard setbacks. It just depends upon what they wanted to do.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Is there a motion to continue the matter embodied in Resolution 2020-105, which is the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval for first floor height and front yard setback variance at 4209 Crocker to October 20, 2020 City Council meeting, and close the public hearing at noon on October 14th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Fisher, second by Member Brindle. Any further conversation? Any further discussion? Please, Ms. Allison.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. This matter is continued for decision to the October 20 City Council meeting. And the public hearing on this matter for further submissions will be held open until October 14th, 2020 at noon. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Excellent presentations, both written and verbal. Appreciate it. And we'll move on now to reports and recommendations. And the first matter we have here is Park and Rec Commission recommendation on renaming Garden Park, and Director Vetter has this matter.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This evening in your packet is a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission that co-chaired a cross-commission committee with the Human Rights and Relations Committee. It's kind of apt timing, as this evening you heard the ideas for the 2021 work plans from all the commissions. This was an item on a prior work plan that's now coming before you. The task at hand was to review and select a public facility that could be named after the BC and the Ellen Yancey family. That work started with the Human Rights and Relations Commission, where they did review a number of public facilities in and around the Grandview area, and recommended 2 sites for the Parks and Recreation Commission to consider for renaming. Those 2 sites were Wooddale Park along 50th and Garden Park. The Parks and Recreation Commission did unanimously vote to select Garden Park. They had 2 pieces of rationale which are in your packet, and that's the first is that Wooddale has a history of being named after the Wooddale School. And elements of that school are still incorporated into the park. And also there are many memorials, donated plaques, and other park assets within the area. The commission then found out through their research as well that Garden Park had a greater naming ability because it was named after the current subdivision. So with that, the Parks and Recreation Commission unanimously voted to forward to you the recommendation to rename Garden Park after the Yancey family.
All right, thank you, Dr. Vetter. Council comments or questions on this recommendation? Member Staunton?
Yeah, Perry, was there any discussion? We did get a letter on this topic that was making the point that the Yancey property was actually more in the Grandview area, and it would be more appropriate to, name something in the Grandview area. Was there any discussion about that as opposed to the park, or was it a function of we've waited so long for something to happen at the Grandview area that we can't wait any longer?
Yes, I can't speak for the Human Rights and Relations Commission or that subset of commissioners that worked on that. But in the memo that they did provide to the Parks Commission is that they did look in the Grandview area. They did look at items like the Senior Center, which is obviously within the Hennepin County Library or other locations. Obviously, the development potential within the Grandview area could bring an opportunity. However, there isn't anything on the agenda today. Kind of as a reminder, this was, I believe, an outcome task of the Race and Equity Task Force, which was then put on commission work plans. They also thought that the park idea would bring greater visibility, a higher number of visits, a higher number of eyes, a higher awareness of the Yancey family within that naming. So while they did look in the specific Grandview area where the homestead was, they didn't select any amenities within that. They did focus on the parks.
All right, thank you.
So, Perry, do you know whether they looked at the Grandview Square Park and what their thoughts were? Was it a visibility issue there because it's kind of tucked in between the condominiums and the library senior center?
Mayor, members of the council, I'm sorry, I can't speak to specifically what their rationale for not including that was. But if there are certain questions that we can get answered by the HRRC, that subcommittee, we could further ask for clarification on some of those items. As it entered into the Parks and Recreation Commission, it came with the recommendation to look at just 2 sites.
Good. Yeah, it's an interesting point that Member Stoughton's raising, or actually one of our residents raised is how about trying to find something close to where they were homesteaders, I assume, and own their farm. It's an interesting idea. Other thoughts or comments by council members?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Fisher, and then back to Member Stoughton.
So the letter that we got today, it was from Peter Sussman, and Peter is an architect who has a great knowledge of our history, and he likes to do the research. And he actually sent me two newspaper, essentially clippings from a newspaper in the, I think it was, late 1800s, but very early on, about, and it was from a African American newspaper in the Minneapolis area describing the day trip visitors coming to visit the Yanceys. It was just amazing to read it. Should send it to all of you. But I do think there's a strong geographical tie to the Grandview area, and someday I would really like to see something tied to the actual area where their property was. It was a pretty substantial property. I mean, the letter we got today shows that it encompasses almost all of what we think of as the Grandview area, and including the right-of-way of Highway 100. But at the same time, I really appreciate the work that's been done, and I hadn't thought about this, but naming it after a park that gets utilized a lot is a way to really recognize the name. The part that I haven't figured out is, what does that mean? It's another name. So how do we actually educate people as to who the family was and why that name? And does that happen in the park or whatever? I always thought, naming a community meeting room in City Hall where you could have a display or something that tells the history would be good. But we could figure that out in a park for sure. So I do like the idea of a lot of people, whether they're going to soccer games or softball games or whatever in that park. It is a good opportunity. A little bummed about the geographic separation, but I do think it's a pretty good solution.
Back to Member Stoughton.
Yeah, that's kind of the place I'm at too. I think it's a very prominent location that lots of folks are going to go through, and I think we can figure out a way to put the appropriate signage or plaquage or whatever you would call it in there that would educate folks as to the prominent role that family played. Plus, we asked our HRRC and our Parks and Rec commissions to stare this down, and this is what they came up with, and I'm not inclined to second guess them. And I think it's nice to make some progress on this work plan item. So I'd be in favor of proceeding.
Other thoughts?
Could I just, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mary.
If something does happen at Grandview that creates something that could be named, I don't think it's going to be a park there, so it wouldn't conflict in that manner. It could be a building, it could be something in the area that could be named for them that is more in the location that that they owned. It really would be cool to see that, Mike. But I don't have a problem with Garden Park, and I also think that Grandview has proven to be it just, I mean, we can't finish it, and if we can't, then here's an opportunity to name something that is prominent. And I agree that signage can be put in the park, and if something presents itself in the future that allows a second or even third use of the name, that'd be fine too. So that's where I'm coming in.
One of the, Mr. Mayor, if I could, one of the things I learned today in talking with Peter Sussman is that there actually used to be Yancey Lane in the Grandview area, and it's a street that doesn't really exist anymore, but it's very close to Gus Young Lane. And, you know, in the future layout of Grandview, we are going to have a new east-west street. So I just want us to not preclude that from happening in the future, that there could be a new street, which probably would cross right about where their homestead was, to think about that. And that doesn't get in the way, you know, the fact that there's a park named after them it's no problem at all, right? It's not like we're naming two different streets. So I think there are some opportunities in the future, and I want us to really seriously contemplate it when we get there someday.
All right, thank you. Member Anderson, you were going to say something.
I am, yeah, thank you. You know, I agree with my colleagues completely. The Sussman letter had my attention, and I thought it was very well written and well thought out. The park renaming is not geographically ideal, of course. However, I think it's keeping a promise. I think that it's achieving a goal that's important. And I'll just beat an old drum for a moment and say, if we ever get the right community center over at Grandview, it can certainly be named for them. So another thought on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the idea too of having the Yancey name attached to a park where there's a lot of activity. But I think, you know, as we contemplate some of the other parks that we have now that are named after people that we've known in our lifetime, some living, some passed away, I think it's really important to the point that a couple of council members have made is that we get some sort of educational material out there, some plaques, some history, so that people aren't wondering, well, who's Yancey? What was the Yancey? Who were the Yancey family members? When were they here? And I think that should be, that's on us, I think, to make sure that the history be shown fully there and memorialized through some method that withstands the stresses of time from weather and everything else, and people can always see who the Yancey family was. So the comings and goings at Garden Park are regular, and I think that's a nice place to celebrate the Yancey family. Is there a motion approving the renaming of Garden Park to Yancey Park?
So moved.
Second.
We had a motion and second. A motion by Member Staunton, second by Member Brindle to rename Garden Park Yancey Park. Is any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Anderson?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Staunton?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. The motion passes. Garden Park is renamed Yancey Park, and it's a wonderful celebration of the early diversity of Edina. So, all right. Thanks, folks, for that good discussion. Interesting. On to correspondence and petitions. Has anything come in, Clerk Allison or Manager Neal?
Nope.
We started the meeting. All right.
Got everything.
All right. And aviation noise update, anything there, Member Brindle?
The next meeting of the Noise Oversight Committee is in November, and it, as it has been in the last 2 years, if it's the same this year, it will be an evening meeting, and I'm guessing it's going to be the same as the meetings we've had since COVID, and that is a telephone conference meeting. So, but it'll be on the third Wednesday of November in the evening, and more details to come on that.
All right, good. Thank you. Mayor and council comments. Member Brindle, do you want to keep us going here?
Sure. I just have one comment, and it is something that I've been thinking about, and something that Manager Neal said earlier tonight made me think about this. And he was talking about the street funding task force and feeling like the council wasn't clear on whether this was, on how this task force was going to be formed. And I don't remember being unclear that this was going to be a city manager's task force. I remember discussing that, but I don't remember being unclear on it. But the other task force that that I've gotten the message that the council has been unclear on guidance is to the housing task force, and I guess looking at those two things, if in fact when the council is asked for guidance, we give a response that is in 5 different places because we're 5 different people, that can be very difficult for a staff person or a group of volunteers on a task force to take and find out, well, what is the guidance that we got from the council? So looking at these 2 instances, when we give guidance, whether it's to a commission or a task force, I wonder if we should have a way to take our 5 opinions and not and come out with specific and clear guidance within that meeting, and don't make it someone else's problem to figure out what we said and what we intended. So I'm a little concerned about that because it means that the people on the task force might feel they need more guidance, or the community might be reacting to something that wasn't intended. So I think maybe we need some help on this as a council to figure out how do we, because we have 5 different opinions, how do we take those opinions and form a direction for the entity that's asking for it? So, and that could be a staff person, it could be a task force, could be a commission. So that's what I have.
All right, thanks, Member Brindle. Member Anderson.
Yeah, I actually have a couple things. Number 1, I think, is just if we may move back to item 10 on correspondence and petitions. I believe we saw a memo earlier this week, an email from Director Vetter on a petition that was presented on Braemar Arena. So I just wanted to touch base on that, and I don't know if Director Vetter wants to weigh in, but we read it and the petition exists. So just to mention that, I think it was to have been presented this evening. So I'll consider this having done so. Also, I think important to commend Member Fisher on his neckwear selection. And so thank you for that. Also, I was at the, if you'll bear with me just for a moment, I was at the ICOLA Cup banquet, I think that was 3 weeks ago, which was a little bit of a recognition of Coach Giles. And he told a wonderful story. It's the best hockey story I've ever heard. I will be brief. However, he discussed playing in the Olympics with Wayne Gretzky. And there was a moment in the first period of a game in Romania, I believe, that he found Gretzky breaking out on the right side, saw him, and saw 3 guys coming in on him, and said, I can't do that. I don't want to put the puck on that stick. So he took it down. He also admitted that he's not much of a scorer, and so he shot wide. And when they came back after the shift, Gretzky looks at Giles and says, "You have to give me the puck. You have to give me the puck in that situation." And he's thinking, "Gee, I I don't know. He said, those three guys. He says, I saw them. I saw where they were. Said, okay. And it just happens that in the next period, the same situation presents itself. And he said, all right. He puts it on Gretzky's stick. That's a 180. Dekes a guy, comes in, passes it to Bob Gainey coming down on the left. It comes back to Gretzky, puts it right in. And they come back to the bench. After that, you got to give me the puck. It turns out that the first game that the North Stars play when they come back from the Olympics is against what Gretzky, I think, played a year in Winnipeg. And their coach at that time, it'll come back to me, not Nanny, says, well, you know what?
Oh, Glenn Sonmore, I bet, maybe.
Thank you. Well, Sonmore, says to the team, look, we can't let Gretzky beat us tonight. And of course, Giles is shaking his head, right, we can't let Gretzky beat us. So he says, now don't let him come out from behind the net. Gretzky's got the puck behind the net, and on the North Stars goal, starts to move to his left. Giles is on his right. Gretzky comes out, takes a shot, it comes off of Giles' shin pad and goes in the net. So Giles looks at him and says, did you try to do that? And word to the effect of, absolutely. Pretty funny, I think. He used different words in that in finishing that story. But it was really funny, and I thought it was the best hockey story ever.
That is a good story. Thank you.
Anything else, Member Anderson?
Isn't that enough? Thank you.
All right, yeah. Member Staunton.
Just one thing, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to point out that on our consent agenda tonight was a resolution that in some years might pass without notice, approving election judges. And on that attached that resolution as an Exhibit A with 250 names of Edina residents who have volunteered to be election judges. And in most years, that's an extraordinary volunteer act because these folks get there at 5 in the morning and are there until 10 at night. But in this year, with the pandemic and with the scrutiny that is on our elections, it is downright heroic. And I just wanted to point out my gratitude to, if we had time, I'd read every one of those names, because that's an extraordinary act of courage, frankly, for our democracy. And I am just thrilled to see so many people doing that. So, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point that out and make sure that those folks have our gratitude for their volunteer.
Yeah, that was a great comment. Thank you for that. I was similarly struck when I saw all those names of all those people. And I know we were worried for a long time about who would step up to serve, because so many of our election judges are at in the age bracket where they're at highest risk for serious impact from COVID. So, yeah, pretty extraordinary. And and Sharon, you might want to speak just briefly about the level of voting that's going on, and I think maybe affirming of what I had represented, because you and I had a conversation a few days ago, but the number of people you're seeing either voting in person or dropping their ballots off, and then the process that you're using to check those mailed ballots or those dropped off ballots for accuracy.
Absolutely. So, so far, we've had at least 62% of registered voters have requested an online ballot, which is a pretty high number. And we've had 28% of registered voters have already dropped off their absentee ballot, either by mailing it in or dropping off at City Hall. We do have a drop-off tent in the parking lot for ballots, and the things that we do to check to make sure that those ballots will be accepted and not be rejected is we check to make sure that first it is an Edina ballot that is being dropped off, that we have the voters' driver's license as well as their social security number listed on the outside, so that when we go into the system to verify their identity, if they've requested their ballot using only their social security number, but on the envelope that they've dropped off to us, they list their driver's license number, that would mean we wouldn't be able to clearly identify the voter's identity, and that could result in a rejected ballot. And we want to avoid that at all costs. So we make sure we have both their driver's license number and their social security, last 4 digits of their social security number, so that we can verify their identity and not reject a ballot. It has been pretty busy at City Hall, both in the drop-off tent in the parking lot, as well as those who are coming in to vote. We've been averaging somewhere between at least 300 drop-off ballots since we've opened up the tent on September 24th. So it's been pretty busy, this election, and we're very grateful for all the judges, those who have stepped up to become election judges this year.
And I think you 300 per day is the average.
That is correct. Yes, in the drop-off tent.
And so if we get to a few days before the election, I don't know what the cutoff is for taking those dropped off ballots, but if someone's made a mistake and they want to make sure their vote counts, now we have time to mail them a new ballot and tell them they've got to resubmit. But a few days beforehand, what are we going to do?
So the process is we reach out immediately, send them a replacement ballot in the mail. For example, when we get to the drop-off time frame is 3 p.m. November 2nd. But let's say the day before November 2nd, we have a ballot that is rejected. We try to find an email address or phone number, and we will call that voter, and we will tell them what their option is at that time. And most likely, in that short space of time, it will be to go to the polling place to vote. Or if we are still open and voting at City Hall, say the 31st of October, then that's an option where they can come into City Hall and vote. But we will give them all the options that they have available. And the last option, of course, is to make sure they go to their polling place to cast their ballot.
Right. Good. Thank you for that. And then with respect to election security, Manager Neal, do you want to comment on that at all, or are you going to comment on that in your remarks? Some of the preparation work we're doing around election security. You're on mute.
I'm not sure what you want me to answer here.
Well, I think we've had a preliminary conversation about security around polling places on election day.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, and that's a discussion that the chief of police and Ms. Allison and I have had in order to prepare for things we're not anticipating, right? Things that have never occurred before. We just need to be prepared from a legal perspective about what our authority is regarding who can be in a polling place and who can't. How do we remove them if we need to? We're starting to kind of ask ourselves those questions now and talking with legal advisors so that we can be ready long before Election Day.
Okay. Thank you both for that. So with respect to the issue that Member Brindle raised, manager task force versus city council task force, my recollection was that we asked the city manager to handle the appointments on the task force, but I think it is something that we should talk about, because I think open meetings, transparency, regardless of whether it's a manager appointed task force or a city council appointed task force, I think we want to make sure that people have access to those meetings, and I don't know if live streaming is always possible, but something to think about and have a conversation about, because we've worked hard at making sure we are good communicators and are transparent in the work that gets done on behalf of the city. Director Benarott, do we have that little short video clip from 7700 France? So I went down for...
This is Scott Denfeld, video production coordinator, Scott Denfeld. I will share it via my computer right now.
Okay, so we've got just a short clip here from just a few seconds long of the work that was done at 7700 France with respect to the outdoor areas. Went down there for a ribbon cutting. It was really a pleasure to do a ribbon cutting in this era. But I thought council members would enjoy seeing what's been done outside and what you need to be doing as a commercial property owner now with respect to some of the up and coming companies that want to be able to be outside and engage in activities, whether it's sitting outside and having a cup of coffee or doing bocce or other things. So here's just a short portion of what we could show as a longer video, but I think this will give you the idea of what they've got over there. I think this gives us a good flavor of it. Go ahead. Stop it. Yeah, thank you. It's pretty extraordinary, and when you drive along France Avenue, you may see those yellow umbrellas up, but you have no sense of what's been done over there, and it really is quite impressive. So I thought folks would enjoy seeing that. And then we had, Mike Fisher. I don't know if you noticed this over in your neighborhood at Arneson Acres on Saturday, but there were several fire trucks over there. A couple of our new fire trucks. And they had a tribute that was done over there for J.W. Singleton, Jim Singleton, who was one of our first African-American firefighters, came out of the Marine Corps in '73, I think, and was with the Edina Fire Department for 22 years and really had quite a great personality. I didn't personally know him, but I did go over to the event on Saturday. He was born and raised down in Des Moines, West Des Moines, and came from a big family. Went back down there after he retired. Passed away from kidney failure at a relatively young age of 73, just recently. But the event on Saturday was very well done. Our fire department guys were over there with quite a few pieces of equipment. Had a chance to have a nice conversation with his son Marcus, who works for Mayor Fry in the city of Minneapolis. Met Marcus's sister and his mother, and it was a really nice tribute for J.W. Singleton. A couple other things, I just want to give you a heads up on this. I'm getting quite a few emails about the composting, especially from older folks who are in their homes, lone widows, small garages, and I think Manager Neal is trying to compile some data on composting and the cost of it. I'm getting folks telling us that they don't want to do it, they don't want to pay for it, and so anyway, we're going to have that. That's going to be something that we take a look at here. And then I wanted to talk to you just briefly about Fairview Southdale, and I know that we got an email from Manager Neal, I think last week, saying that $250,000 in CARES Act funds that we had allocated to Fairview Southdale to create a community testing program, that program didn't materialize, and I think it's in part because they've had so much stress over there in their operations and the whole system. I got a call from Mary Edwards, their governmental affairs person, the day before yesterday, and they had just announced that they were laying off 900 people. They've lost $153 million in first 10 months of the year, they're projecting to lose $250 million. And a lot of it due to the activities around COVID and the lack of full compensation for the work they're doing for COVID patients. So here we are with a regional hospital in our town, our largest employer. For me, whenever we ask them to step up, they've stepped up, whether it's for fireworks annually or anything else that we need from them. They've been a great corporate citizen. And Burnsville gave them $161,000 in CARES Act funding, just without any strings attached, no quid pro quo. Savage gave $50,000 to the system, and I think we should put it on our agenda for the 20th of October to talk about whether we still want to think about the possibility of providing that $250,000 to them, because every dollar counts right now. And I'm going to advocate for it, but I think it should be on our agenda to discuss on the 20th of October. So is that something people are comfortable with?
Sure.
Having that discussion, at least getting it on the agenda for a discussion. Yeah, thank you. So that, and the 900 employees, they do have 1,200 jobs available, but there's 400 of them are admin, and they're scattered all over the place. So and then 800 are clinical related, but some of the folks over at Southdale have been laid off, and then they're trying to refashion themselves in their role in the medical community. Anyway, it's something we can talk about on the 20th. And I think that was it for me. I'll turn to Manager Neal. I'll look one more time at the things I've kind of gathered up over the last week or two and see if there's anything else I want to talk to folks about. But Manager Neal, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have two quick things that have already been mentioned tonight. One is regarding the petition regarding improvements at Braemar Ice Arena. We will present that to you at your October 20th meeting. It just didn't make it into our hands in time to get on tonight's agenda, so that's coming to you on October 20th. The other item is the one raised by Councilmember Brindle about the task force issue. I did not mean to imply that the council was unclear about the direction. I meant to infer that city staff didn't follow that direction. We had a discussion. There's a paper trail, and we've looked at it pretty closely about what we did and what we talked about and what was actually approved. And just because of the way it was handled at the meeting, we didn't follow that all the way through the way we should have. So that's not on the council, that's on staff, specifically me, to make sure that we don't do that again. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Fisher.
Can I have a chance to give some comments?
Yeah, sorry, my fault. Yeah, thank you.
Now, had you called on me, I probably would have said I have no comment. But anyway, I thought I'd take an opportunity. So first of all, I was thinking about our conversation that we just had about the Yanceys and the naming of Garden Park. And unless I missed it, we kind of blew an opportunity even here tonight to, tell a little bit of a story about like why the Yanceys. I mean, people that are watching this meeting may not know at all. And so just to reiterate, the Yanceys were one of our founding families in this community. And they were, the amazing part about that story is the Yanceys and the other families that had the farms back in that time, they socialized, they did a lot of things together. And it was a true, call it a true mixed race community. And obviously it turned out really well, other than the fact that, through our history, the black families were, disadvantaged, to say the least, when it came to buying homes, being able to buy homes, all that kind of thing. So I think the idea that we can celebrate our history and look to the future to do better is a good thing. So I just wanted to say that. Wanted to reiterate the Councilmember Staunton's comments or praise for election judges. Very much appreciate those folks. And to Councilmember Anderson, so Ron and I were bantering back and forth before our last meeting about, I told him he was pressuring me into wearing ties again because with the pandemic, I just kind of backed off a little bit and just went with a suit coat, no tie. And so tonight I thought I'd step it up. So thank you, Ron, for recognizing that. And Kevin, you look great the way you are. Do not feel peer pressure. Even Mary's wearing a tie. So I'm just saying.
I'm waiting for Mary.
So no
March
pressure.
16th. March 16th was the last time I had a tie on.
You just be. It feels good. It's first time since March 17th, but it feels good. So anyway, that's all, Mayor. Hard hitting stuff from Mike tonight.
Yeah, I'm thinking if he was wearing a tie on March 17th, it got cut off somewhere. Some St. Patrick's Day celebration. That thing is long gone. All right, folks. Good meeting. Got a lot done tonight, and really efficient work through all those public hearings. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you all soon. We stand. Is there a motion to adjourn? We better do it the official way, I guess.
So moved.
Second.
We get a motion by Member Fisher, second by Member Stoughton to adjourn. Any further discussion regarding the motion? Clerk Allison.
Member Anderson.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Fisher.
Aye.
Member Staunton.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. We stand adjourned.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.